After I dropped my wife off at the airport for her business trip, my 8-year-old son grabbed my arm from the back seat shaking. "Dad, we can't go home," he whispered. I heard Mom planning something bad for us. I thought he was scared. I thought it was just a child's imagination. So instead of driving home, I pulled into a dark lot across the street and waited. 10 minutes later, headlights stopped in front of my house. And when I saw who stepped out of the car beside her, my entire world went silent. Hello everyone, and thank you for staying with me up to this moment. Please drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you realize. And while you're there, tell me honestly, if your 8-year-old warned you not to go home, would you listen? Leave your answer below, because the truth behind that warning is darker than you might expect. Just so you know, the next part of this story contains some fictionalized details added for dramatic and educational purposes. Any similarity to real names or locations is coincidental, but the lesson behind it is very real. The smell of her perfume was still lingering in the car. It was a heavy floral scent, expensive stuff that I had paid for with the grease on my hands and the sweat on my brow. Keisha had leaned in just 5 minutes ago, her lips brushing my cheek with a cold precision that I had mistaken for affection. "Have a safe flight, baby," she had said. Her smile was dazzling, the kind of smile that could light up a room, the kind of smile that had made an old man like me feel young again. She told me not to wait up because the conference in Chicago would run late. She stepped out onto the curb at the departure terminal, heels clicking with confidence. She looked beautiful. She looked innocent. She looked like the love of my life. I watched her walk through the automatic doors without looking back once. She was a woman on a mission. I put the car in drive and turned to check on my son in the back seat. "Say goodbye to Mom." "Leo," I said. But Leo did not speak. He was curled up in the far corner of the leather seat, his knees pulled up tight against his chest. He was shaking. It was not the air conditioning. It was fear, pure, raw terror radiating off his small body. "Leo," I asked, my voice softening. "What is wrong, son?" He looked up at me and his eyes were wide and wet. A child should never look like that, especially not when looking at his own mother. I merged onto the highway, heading back toward the house. The silence in the car was heavy. Usually Leo would be talking about his video games or asking for ice cream, but today he was silent as a tomb. "Dad," he finally whispered. His voice was barely audible over the hum of the engine. "Dad, please." I looked in the rearview mirror again. "What is it, son? Are you feeling sick?" Leo unbuckled his seatbelt. He climbed forward, grabbing my shoulder with a grip that was surprisingly strong for an 8-year-old. "We cannot go home, Dad. Please, do not drive home." I let out a nervous laugh, trying to lighten the mood. "What are you talking about, Leo? It is pizza night. Just you and me." "No," Leo screamed. It was not a tantrum. It was a desperate plea for survival. "Mom is not in Chicago." She lied. I frowned, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. "Leo, stop it. You saw her go into the airport." "I heard her," he said, and tears began to stream down his face fast and hot. "I heard her on the phone in the bathroom this morning. She had the shower running really loud, but I heard her." I pulled the car over to the shoulder of the highway. The hazard lights clicked rhythmically in the silence. Click, click, click. I turned around to face him. "What did you hear, Leo? Tell me exactly what you heard." He took a deep breath, shuddering as he tried to get the words out. She said, "Tonight is the last night for the old man. She said the medicine has soaked in enough. She said his heart will just stop, and it will look like an accident." The world seemed to stop spinning. The cars rushing past us on the highway became a blur. Medicine. I touched my chest instinctively. For weeks I had been feeling dizzy. My vision would blur in the afternoons. I was tired all the time. Keisha's doctor, the one she insisted I see instead of my old friend Vance, had told me it was just age. He said it was stress. He gave me vitamins. Keisha gave me a glass of warm milk every single night. "For your bones, baby," she would say. "For your heart." My blood ran cold. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white and my joints ached. My son was not a liar. Leo was smart. Too smart for his age. He observed things. Who was she talking to, I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow and distant, like I was speaking from underwater. Leo looked down at his shoes. She called him H. She said, "H, bring the gun just in case the poison does not finish him." "H, There was only one H in our lives. Hunter, my son-in-law, my daughter Tasha's husband, the man who sat at my table every Sunday, the man who shook my hand and called me sir, the man who I had loaned $50,000 to just last month for his failing business. I did not turn the car around. I did not drive to the police station. Not yet. I needed to see it. I needed to know it was real before I destroyed everything. I drove past our subdivision and pulled into an old abandoned lot across the street from my house. It was overgrown with weeds and shadows, perfect for watching without being seen. I killed the engine. I killed the lights. "Stay down, Leo," I whispered. "Cover yourself with this blanket. Do not make a sound." We waited. The minutes ticked by like hours. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Keisha. "Landed safely. Miss you already. Don't forget to drink your milk." I stared at the screen. The lie was so casual, so easy for her. Then I saw it. Headlights cutting through the darkness. A black SUV. It did not pull into the driveway. It stopped right in front of the curb. My house. The house I bought with sweat and grease and smart investments over 40 years. The passenger door opened. A woman stepped out. She was not in Chicago. She was wearing the same dress she wore to the airport. Keisha. She did not have her luggage. She had a key in her hand. The driver got out. Tall. Blonde hair. Hunter. He walked up to my wife. My wife. And he kissed her. It was not a friendly kiss. It was hungry. It was possessive. Right there on my front lawn under the street lamp I paid taxes for. I felt a fire in my gut, a rage I had not felt since I was in the service 40 years ago. They walked to the front door. They didn't know the house was empty. They thought I was inside, asleep, dying from the poison she had been feeding me. Dad Leo whispered from the floorboard, "Are they going to hurt us?" I looked at my house. I looked at the monsters walking into it. "No, son," I said. "They are not going to hurt us. They made a mistake. They thought Bernie Jefferson was just a tired old mechanic. They forgot that before I fixed cars, I fixed problems." I reached under the seat. My fingers brushed the cold steel of the tire iron. Then I stopped. No, that was too easy, too quick. They wanted my money, they wanted my life. I would give them neither. I started the car and left the lights off, rolling away into the darkness. If they wanted a war, I would give them a war. I sat in the darkness of that abandoned lot with the engine ticking as it cooled down. My hands were still shaking on the steering wheel. The night was heavy and silent around us. Across the street, my house stood like a beacon. It was the home I had built with 40 years of sweat and grease and long hours at the shop. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. Now it looked like a stage set for a tragedy. The streetlights cast long orange shadows on the pavement. I watched the black SUV parked right at my curb. It was aggressive. It was an invasion. The passenger door opened first. Keisha stepped out. She looked around the neighborhood. She was not checking for safety. She was checking for witnesses. She moved with a confidence that made my stomach turn. She was wearing that red dress I bought her for our anniversary, the one she said she was saving for a special occasion. Apparently, plotting my murder was special enough. Then the driver's door opened. A tall figure emerged. "Hello, everyone, and thank you for staying with me up to this moment. Please drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you realize. And while you're there, tell me honestly, if your 8-year-old warned you not to go home, would you listen? Leave your answer below, because the truth behind that warning is darker than you might expect. Just so you know, the next part of this story contains some fictionalized details added for dramatic and educational purposes. Any similarity to real names or locations is coincidental, but the lesson behind it is very real. Even in the dim light, I knew that walk. I knew that arrogant stride. Hunter, my son-in-law, the man who called me Pops every Sunday dinner, the man who shook my hand and looked me in the eye while secretly plotting to end me. He walked around the hood of the car. He didn't look like a man visiting his in-laws to check on the house. He looked like a man claiming his prize. He walked right up to my wife, my Keisha. He grabbed her by the waist with a familiarity that made bile rise in my throat. He pulled her close. They kissed. It was not a quick peck. It was a deep, passionate kiss right there on my front lawn under the oak tree I planted when Tasha was born. It felt like he was spitting in my face. It felt like he was burning down everything I ever stood for. My blood boiled. A red haze clouded my vision. I wanted to scream. I wanted to turn the key and slam the accelerator. I wanted to drive this truck right through them and end it all. My foot hovered over the gas pedal. The rage was a physical thing. It was a fire in my chest. But then I heard a sound from the back seat, a small whimper. Leo. My little boy was huddled on the floorboard. He was peeking over the windowsill. His eyes were wide and reflecting the streetlights. He saw it too. He saw his mother kissing her daughter's husband. He saw the betrayal. I froze. I could not act on impulse. Not with Leo here. I watched them break apart. They laughed. I could see their teeth flashing in the dark. They walked to the front door. Keisha used her key. The sound of the lock turning seemed to echo across the street. They walked in like they owned the place, like I was already dead and buried, like I was just a memory they were ready to erase. The front door closed. The lock clicked. Silence returned to the street. I told Leo to stay down. Stay hidden, son. Do not move no matter what you hear. I had to know. I had to see what they were doing inside. I slipped out of the truck. I closed the door gently until it clicked. I moved through the shadows of the abandoned lot and crossed the street. The asphalt was cold under my boots. I felt like a thief in my own neighborhood. I crept up to the side of the house, avoiding the motion sensor lights I had installed myself. I knew the blind spots. I knew every inch of this property. I moved to the living room window. The blinds were open just a crack. A sliver of yellow light spilled out onto the bushes. I peered inside. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I expected to see them tearing each other's clothes off. I expected to see lust. That would have been painful enough. But I saw something far worse. I saw greed. Pure, cold greed. They were not heading to the bedroom. They were in the living room. The lights were blazing. Keisha was moving fast. She was manic. She was pulling books off the shelves. She was throwing cushions on the floor. She was tearing my house apart. She was looking for something. Hunter was standing by the fireplace. He looked calm, too calm. He reached into his leather jacket. My breath caught in my throat. He pulled out a gun, a black pistol. It looked heavy. It looked real. He placed it on the coffee table next to my favorite reading chair. He checked the chamber. The metal slide clicked. This was not a lover's tryst. This was an execution squad. They thought I was inside sleeping. They thought I was upstairs dying from the poison Keisha had been slipping into my food. They were ready to finish the job if the poison failed. That gun was for me. It was the insurance policy. Keisha walked over to the wall safe behind the painting of Tasha and Leo. She ripped it off the wall and threw it on the sofa. She didn't care about the picture. She didn't care about her children. She started punching in numbers. She knew the code. Of course she knew the code. I trusted her with my life. I trusted her with everything. I watched as the safe door clicked open. She reached inside. She didn't pull out the emergency cash. She pulled out the red binder, the deed to the house, the life insurance policies, the business contracts for the shop. She flipped through them like a starving animal. She laughed. I saw her lips move. She was saying something to Hunter. She waved the papers in the air. She was celebrating. She was celebrating my death while I was still standing outside the window. Hunter picked up the gun again. He pointed it at the ceiling. He was practicing. He was visualizing killing me. He aimed at the stairs. He aimed at where my bedroom door would be. His face was a mask of cruelty. This was the man my daughter Tasha loved. This was the man I welcomed into my family. I felt a wave of dizziness hit me. The poison. It was in my system. The stress was making it worse. My vision blurred for a second. I had to steady myself against the brick wall. I looked at them one last time. The monsters in my living room. They were drinking my wine. They were counting my assets. They were waiting for me to die. My hand went to my pocket. I had a pocket knife, a small thing, useful for cutting boxes at the shop, useless against a 9mm pistol. I looked back at my truck where the tire iron lay under the seat. I calculated the distance. I could run back. I could get the iron. I could smash the window. I could rush inside. I could try to take him down before he fired. I was a soldier once. Vietnam. I knew how to fight. I knew how to kill. But I was 68 years old. My body was filled with arsenic. My hands were not steady. My reflexes were gone. And he had a gun. He was young. He was strong. If I missed, if I stumbled, I would be dead. And Leo. My God, Leo. If I died right there on the living room rug, Leo would be alone. He would be sitting in that truck waiting for a father who would never come back. He would be left with these monsters. They would find him. And I knew with a terrifying certainty that they would not let a witness survive. The thought crashed into me like a wave of ice water. I could not die tonight. I had to live. Not for me. For him. I had to swallow my rage. I had to swallow my pride. I took a step back, then another. I retreated into the darkness. It was the hardest thing I ever did, walking away while they ransacked my home, walking away while another man held a gun in my living room. I crossed the street. I got back into the truck. Leo was sitting up. His face was wet with tears. He was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. He looked at me. He didn't ask what I saw. He knew. He saw my face. He saw the defeat and the rage warring in my eyes. He saw that his father was afraid. I started the engine. I kept the lights off. I released the parking brake and let the truck roll down the street slowly, like a ghost, like a shadow. I didn't turn the headlights on until we were 2 blocks away. I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. My house was glowing with warm light in the distance. It looked inviting. It looked like home. But it was a trap. It was a coffin waiting to be nailed shut. I turned onto the main road. I drove away from the life I built. I drove away from the woman I loved for 10 years. I drove away from the daughter who married a monster. The city lights blurred past us. I felt a single tear roll down my cheek. It was hot and angry. Leo sniffled in the back seat. "Dad, where are we going?" His voice broke my heart. It was so small, so fragile. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned white. I did not know where we were going. I had no plan. I had no clothes. I had a son and a truck and a body full of poison. But I had one thing they didn't know about. I had the truth. I looked at Leo in the mirror. I forced my voice to be steady. "We are going to a safe place, son. We are going to get help, and then we are going to make them pay." I reached back and squeezed his knee. "We are going to war, son, but first we need to survive the night." I pressed the gas pedal and drove into the darkness, leaving my old life behind forever. I pulled the truck up to the valet stand of the Obsidian Hotel. It was a fortress of glass and steel rising high above the city skyline, a place for diplomats and ghosts, people who wanted to disappear in luxury. The valet, a young man in a crisp white uniform, looked at my battered Ford pickup with a sneer. He looked at my grease-stained shirt and my work boots and started to wave me away. He thought I was a delivery driver or a lost old man. I did not say a word. I simply reached into my wallet and pulled out a card. It was not a credit card. It was a thick piece of black titanium with no numbers on the front, only a small gold chip and a signature. It was an invite-only membership card given to the city's top 1%. I had not used it in 15 years. I held it out the window. The valet's eyes went wide. His sneer vanished, instantly replaced by a look of terrified respect. He bowed slightly and opened my door. "Welcome back, Mr. Jefferson," he stammered. I carried Leo through the lobby. He was a dead weight in my arms, exhausted from the terror of the night. The marble floors reflected the crystal chandeliers overhead. The air smelled of white tea and money. It was a smell I had tried to forget. For 40 years I had played the part of Bernie the mechanic. I lived in a modest house. I drove a modest truck. I fixed carburetors and changed oil. I wanted a simple life. I wanted to be loved for me, not for my empire. But walking through that lobby, I felt the old Bernie waking up. The man who built Jefferson Logistics from a single van into a national fleet. The man who negotiated with unions and crushed competitors. That man was not nice. That man was dangerous. And right now, I needed him. We reached the penthouse suite. I laid Leo on the king-sized bed. He looked so small in the middle of the high thread count sheets. I brushed the hair off his forehead. He was safe here. This hotel had security that rivaled the White House. No one got up this elevator without a key card that cost more than my house. I went into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked in the mirror. The face staring back was gray. My eyes were bloodshot. My hands were trembling. I looked like a dying man. And I knew I was. I reached into the lining of my old leather jacket. I ripped the stitching with my pocket knife and pulled out a satellite phone. It was heavy and outdated, but it was secure. I dialed a number I had not called in a decade. It rang once. A gruff voice answered. "Status." I did not waste time with pleasantries. I need a medical team at the Obsidian, Penthouse Suite, A, Protocol 7, and Vance. I need you personally. There was a pause on the other end. The voice lost its robotic tone. Bernie. Is that you? It was Dr. Vance, my oldest friend. We served in the same unit overseas. He went to med school. I went into business. We both buried secrets. I am sick, Vance. I said, my voice raspy. I think I am being poisoned. Get here now. Bring the toxicology kit. And bring the chelation meds. I hung up. I gripped the edge of the sink. The room was spinning. The nausea was a constant wave crashing against my ribs. I had to stay awake. I had to stay alive for Leo. Vance arrived in 20 minutes. He did not come through the lobby. He used the service elevator, the one used for VIPs who did not want to be seen. He looked older. His hair was white now, but his eyes were sharp. He carried a large black medical case. He took one look at me and his jaw tightened. He did not ask how I was. He could see it. He set up a mobile lab on the dining table. He moved with the efficiency of a combat medic. He hooked me up to a heart monitor. The beeping was erratic. My heart was struggling. He drew blood, vial after vial of dark red fluid. He took a sample of my hair. He worked in silence. He put the blood into a portable analyzer. The machine whirred and clicked in the quiet room. I sat in a chair watching Leo sleep. I prayed he would not wake up and see his father hooked up to wires and tubes. The machine beeped loud and sharp. A small printout slid from the side. Vance ripped it off. He read it once, then he read it again. He looked at me and his face was pale with rage. Arsenic, he said. His voice was low, but it carried the weight of a judge passing a sentence. High levels, Bernie. Chronic exposure. You have been ingesting this for months. A low dose. Just enough to make you weak. Just enough to mimic heart failure. A few more days, maybe a week, and your heart would have simply stopped. I closed my eyes. The truth hit me harder than the pavement would have. Arsenic. Tasteless. Odorless. Invisible. How? How did she do it? Then the memory washed over me. Every night at 10 o'clock. Like clockwork. Keisha would walk into the living room. She would be wearing her silk robe, the blue one that made her skin glow. She would have a warm glass of milk in her hands. She would sprinkle nutmeg on top. She said it was for my bones. She said it was for my heart. She would sit on the arm of my chair and run her fingers through my gray hair. Drink it all up, baby, she would say. Her voice was so sweet, so caring. She would watch me drink it. She would not leave until the glass was empty. I remembered the taste. The milk was always a little sweet. The nutmeg was strong. It masked everything. I had thanked her. Every single night I had looked my killer in the eyes and thanked her for the poison. I had kissed the hand that was feeding me death. The nausea rose up in my throat violently. I grabbed the trash can and retched. My body was trying to reject the betrayal. It was trying to purge the lie. She watched me get weaker. She watched me stumble. She watched my hands shake. And she probably went back to Hunter and laughed about the old fool dying by the glassful. Vance put a hand on my shoulder. We need to get you to a hospital, Bernie. You need dialysis. You need monitored chelation. This is critical. I wiped my mouth and looked up at him. No hospitals. If I go to a hospital, there is a record. If there is a record, she knows I am alive. She knows she failed. I need her to think she won. I need her to think I am dead or dying in a ditch somewhere. Treat me here, Vance. Give me the pills. Give me the shots. Do whatever you have to do, but I am not leaving this room, he argued. He told me it was risky. He told me I could have a seizure, but he saw the look in my eyes. It was the same look I had 40 years ago in the jungle. The look of a man who had nothing left to lose. He sighed and opened his case. He mixed a solution. He gave me injections. He gave me charcoal pills. He set up an IV drip. You need to rest, he said. Your body is fighting a war. I am fighting a war, I corrected him. My body is just the battlefield. Vance stayed for an hour monitoring my vitals until they stabilized. He left me with strict instructions and a bag of supplies. I locked the door behind him. I felt the medicine working. Or maybe it was the hate. The hate was a powerful fuel. It burned cleaner than gasoline. I went to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Keisha and Hunter were celebrating. They were probably in my bed right now. They were probably toasting to their victory with my vintage wine. They thought the game was over. They had no idea the game had just begun. I picked up the satellite phone again. I dialed another number. This one belonged to a ghost, a man who operated in the shadows. It rang 3 times. A voice answered. Smooth, dangerous, cultured, Jefferson. I haven't heard from you since the Teamsters tried to burn down your warehouse in '98. It was Dante, the best private investigator in the state, the man you called when the police were too slow or too corrupt, the man you called when you wanted a problem to disappear. I have a job for you, Dante, I said. My voice was steady. The weakness was gone. The mechanic was dead. The tycoon was back. I need eyes on my house. 42 Oak Street. 2 targets, 1 female, 1 male. They are inside right now. I want to know every move they make. I want to know what they eat. I want to know who they call. I want to know when they sleep. Do not intervene. Just watch. And Dante, I added, my voice dropping to a growl, dig deep. I want to know everything about Hunter. I want to know his debts, his vices, his past. I want to know where the bodies are buried. Because I am going to bury him. Dante chuckled. A dry sound like dry leaves scraping pavement. Sounds like you are planning a funeral, Bernie. I am, I said, but not mine. I want you to tap the phones. I want cameras in the vents. I want to hear them breathing. Can you do it? Consider it done, Dante said. I will have a feed set up for you in an hour. Welcome back to the game, Bernie. I hung up the phone. I stood there in the dark suite. The IV drip was cold in my vein. My heart was still fluttering, but my mind was clear. Crystal clear. I was not a victim anymore. I was a hunter, and they were the prey. They had walked into the trap thinking they were the predators. They had no idea that the old lion they tried to poison still had claws. I walked back to the bed and lay down next to Leo. I listened to his breathing, in and out, steady. I put my hand on his small back. I swore on my life that I would protect him. I would burn the world down to keep him safe. And tomorrow I would light the match. The sun was barely up over the city skyline, but my phone was already screaming on the bedside table. I looked at the caller ID through eyes that felt like they were filled with sand. It was Tasha, my daughter, my firstborn, the girl I raised alone for 10 years before Keisha came into the picture. I hesitated before answering. I looked at the live feed on Dante's tablet, which was propped up against the fruit bowl. On the screen I could see the interior of my own living room. It was empty now, but I knew where the occupants were. Hunter and Keisha were upstairs in my bed, sleeping off a night of looting my safe and celebrating my impending death. I swiped the green button and put the phone to my ear. Dad Tasha's voice was high and tight. It was the voice she used when she was a teenager and had crashed the car. Panic and desperation wrapped in a thin layer of hope. I am so glad you answered. I tried calling Keisha, but she is not picking up. Of course she wasn't picking up. She was busy betraying us both. I kept my voice raspy and weak, playing the part of the dying old man they wanted me to be. I am here, sweetheart, I said. What is wrong? She took a ragged breath. It is Hunter, Dad. He is in terrible trouble. He called me from Dallas just now. His business deal fell through. The investors pulled out at the last second. He needs $50,000 by noon or he is going to lose everything. He says the suppliers are threatening to sue him. He sounded so scared, Dad. I have never heard him like this. I closed my eyes and gripped the edge of the nightstand until the wood creaked. Dallas. Hunter was not in Dallas. Hunter was 5 miles away in my house, probably drooling on my pillow. The audacity of the lie was breathtaking. He was not just a murderer, he was lazy. He could not even be bothered to leave town to make his alibi credible. He was calling his wife from his mistress's bed, begging for money that he would likely spend on jewelry for that same mistress, and my daughter believed him. She swallowed the lie hook, line, and sinker. I need you to help us, Dad, she pleaded. I know it is a lot. I know we already owe you. But Hunter swore this is the last time. He said once this deal goes through, we will be set for life. He promised me, Dad, please, I cannot let him lose his company. It is his dream. I listened to her begging for the man who was currently plotting to kill me. I felt a surge of anger, but it was not directed at her. It was directed at myself. I had failed her. I had raised her to be kind and trusting. I had raised her to stand by her husband no matter what. I had made her the perfect victim for a predator like Hunter. He had isolated her. He had gaslighted her. He had turned my strong, independent girl into a nervous wreck who functioned only to service his greed. I forced the anger down. I needed to know the truth. I needed to know if she was part of the plan or just a pawn. I cleared my throat. Tasha, listen to me. I cannot transfer that kind of money over the phone. You know the bank protocols. If you want the money, you need to come see me. I am not at the house. I am at the Obsidian Hotel downtown. Meet me in the business center in 1 hour. There was a pause. Why are you at a hotel, Dad? Is everything okay? I coughed a dry, rattling sound that was not entirely fake. I just needed to be closer to the city for a meeting, honey. Just come. And Tasha, come alone. Do not tell Hunter you are meeting me. I want to surprise him with the check. Okay, Dad, she said, her voice filled with relief. Thank you. You are saving his life. I hung up the phone. Saving his life. That was the irony of the century. I was about to hand him the shovel he would use to dig his own grave. I showered and dressed in a fresh suit that Vance had brought me. I looked in the mirror. The color was coming back to my face, but I still looked gaunt. Good. That would help with the test. I went down to the business center, a quiet room lined with mahogany and leather. I sat at the head of the long conference table and waited. 10 minutes later, Tasha walked in. She looked terrible. She was thin, too thin. Her eyes were shadowed with dark circles and her hands were twitching at her sides. She wore a simple dress that looked old. Hunter drove a Porsche and wore Italian suits, but his wife looked like she shopped at a thrift store. That alone told me everything I needed to know about their marriage. She rushed over and hugged me. She smelled like anxiety and cheap soap. Dad, you look tired, she said, pulling back to look at me. Are you okay? I gestured for her to sit. I sat heavily opposite her, letting my shoulders slump. Tasha, I need to talk to you about something serious. It is not just about the money. It is about the future. She froze her hands, gripping her purse. What is it, Dad? You are scaring me. I leaned forward and lowered my voice. I went to the doctor yesterday, Tasha. The news was not good. My heart is failing. They do not think I have much time left. Maybe a few weeks, maybe days. Her face went white. No, she whispered. No, that is impossible. You are strong. You are always strong. I shook my head slowly. We all run out of gas eventually, sweetheart. But that is not why I called you here. Since I am dying, I need to make sure my affairs are in order. I have decided to sign over power of attorney to Keisha. I am going to give her full control of the estate, the company, and the accounts. She is smart. She knows how to handle money. I think it is best if she manages your inheritance for you. I watched her face closely. This was the test. If she was conspiring with them, she would be relieved. She would encourage it. She would want the path of least resistance to the money. But that is not what happened. Tasha's eyes went wide with pure panic. She stood up so fast her chair tipped over backward. No, Dad, she cried. You cannot do that. You cannot give everything to Keisha. Why not? I asked, keeping my voice calm. She is my wife. She loves us. Tasha began to pace the small room, wringing her hands. She does not love us, Dad. She tolerates us. And Hunter says she is dangerous. He says she is greedy. He told me that if you ever died, we would have to fight her for every penny. He said we need to secure the assets now before she gets her claws into them. I sat back, steeping my fingers. So Hunter is worried about the money, not about me. Tasha stopped pacing. She looked at me and for a second the veil lifted. She looked ashamed. No, Dad. He is worried about us, about our future. He says you are too old to manage the business anyway. He says Keisha is manipulating you. He told me that I needed to get you to sign the business over to him. He said he is the only one who can save Jefferson Logistics. She covered her mouth as if she had said too much, but the dam had broken. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I am sorry, Dad. I did not mean to say that. He just put so much pressure on me. He yells at me if I do not bring home enough money. He says I am useless. He says I am a disappointment to you. He says if I do not get this $50,000, he is going to leave me. She collapsed into the chair, sobbing into her hands. The sound was raw and painful. It was the sound of a woman who had been broken down piece by piece for years. I looked at my daughter and I saw the truth. She was not a villain. She was a hostage. Hunter had turned her against Keisha not because he hated Keisha, but to create division, to keep Tasha focused on the wrong enemy. Meanwhile, he was sleeping with the very woman he told his wife to fear. It was a masterclass in manipulation. I stood up and walked over to her. I put my hand on her shoulder. She flinched. That flinch told me more than 1,000 words ever could. He was hurting her. Maybe not always with his fists, but he was hurting her. My rage flared again, hot and white, but I pushed it down. I needed a clear head. "Tasha, look at me," I said firmly. She looked up, her face streaked with mascara. "I am not going to give the money to Keisha," I said, "and I am not going to die, not anytime soon." "I lied to you, Tasha. I needed to see something, and I saw it." She looked confused. "You lied. Why?" "Because I need to know who I can trust," I said, "and now I know." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a checkbook. I wrote a check for $50,000. My handwriting was steady. I tore it out and handed it to her. "Here is the money for Hunter." She took it, her hands trembling. "Dad, you said you were sick." "I am sick," I said, "sick of lies. But you take this to him. You save his precious business. But Tasha, I want you to promise me one thing." "Anything, Dad," she whispered, clutching the check like a lifeline. "Do not sign anything he gives you," I said. "Not a contract, not a loan application, not a deed, nothing. If he asks you to sign something, you tell him you need to show it to me first. Can you do that?" She nodded. "Yes, yes, I can do that. And Tasha," I added, my voice hardening, "if he ever touches you again, if he ever raises his voice at you, you come to me. Do you understand? You come straight to me." She nodded again, wiping her eyes. "I have to go, Dad. He is waiting for the wire transfer. I have to get to the bank." "Go on," I said. I watched her leave the room. She walked fast, head down, shoulders hunched. She looked like a woman running from a fire. I sat back down in the leather chair. I felt old, older than my 68 years. My daughter was sleeping with a viper and she didn't even know he had fangs. But she was innocent. She was foolish and weak, but she was innocent. She had passed the test. Now I had to save her. And the only way to save her was to destroy the man she loved. I picked up the tablet again. On the screen I saw Hunter in my kitchen. He was eating a sandwich. He was wearing my bathrobe. He looked relaxed. He looked like a king in his castle. He had no idea that the check his wife was bringing him was not a lifeline. It was bait. I was going to let him think he had won. I was going to let him get comfortable. I was going to let him think he had successfully drained the old man dry. And then, when he least expected it, I was going to reveal the monster under his skin. I was going to make Tasha see him for what he really was. Not a businessman, not a husband, but a thief and a cheater who was sleeping with her stepmother. It would break her heart. I knew that. It would crush her. But a broken heart can heal. A life destroyed by a man like Hunter never recovers. I dialed Dante's number. "The check is on the way," I said. "Track it. I want to know exactly where that money goes. I want to know which account he deposits it in. I want to know who he pays." Dante laughed. "You think he is paying debts, Bernie." "I know he is not paying debts," I said. "He is paying for a getaway. He is paying for paradise. Let him book the tickets, Dante. Let him pack his bags. Let him think he is flying away. Because when he gets to the gate, I want to be the one to cancel his flight." I hung up and looked at the screen one last time. Hunter was laughing at something on his phone. "Enjoy it, son," I whispered to the empty room. "Enjoy my house. Enjoy my robe. Enjoy my money. Because it is the last time you will ever taste the good life. The clock is ticking, and your time is almost up." I sat in the high-back leather chair of the hotel suite watching the data stream on the tablet Dante had set up. The screen showed a GPS map of the city. 2 red dots were moving slowly down Michigan Avenue. The Magnificent Mile. The playground for the rich and the careless. Hunter and Keisha were not hiding. They were not mourning the husband and father-in-law who had vanished into the night. They were celebrating. I saw the credit card alerts start to pop up on my phone like popcorn in a hot pan. A $500 lunch at a steakhouse. A $2,000 charge at a designer luggage store. They were buying new bags to pack for the trip they were planning with my money. I switched the feed to the security cameras Dante had hacked. The image was grainy, but clear enough. I saw them walking into a high-end jewelry store. The kind of place where they offer you champagne before you even look at a price tag. Hunter was strutting. He walked with his chest puffed out like a rooster in a hen house. He was wearing one of my vintage watches. I recognized the gold band glinting under the store lights. He had taken it from my dresser while I was gone. He was wearing a dead man's time on his wrist. Keisha was clinging to his arm. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, trying to look like a celebrity. She pointed at a display case. The clerk, a young woman with white gloves, unlocked the glass. She pulled out a ring, a diamond solitaire. It was huge, vulgar. It probably cost more than the first house I ever bought. Hunter took it and slid it onto Keisha's finger. She held her hand up to the light, admiring the sparkle. She kissed him. Right there in the middle of the store. She kissed the man who was helping her kill her husband while spending her husband's money to buy an engagement ring for her new life. The arrogance was suffocating. They truly believed they had won. They thought I was a senile old fool who had wandered off to die in the woods, leaving the kingdom unguarded. They thought the credit limit was infinite, and the consequences were non-existent. I watched Hunter pull out his wallet. He produced the black card, the supplementary American Express I had given him 2 years ago when he said he needed help with business expenses. He held it between 2 fingers, casually flipping it onto the glass counter. He didn't even ask the price. He just nodded at the clerk like a king dismissing a servant. I picked up my phone. I dialed the private number for the bank's fraud department. I knew the director personally. We played poker once a month. "This is Bernard Jefferson," I said. My voice was flat and cold as iron. "Code word Phoenix. Execute immediate freeze. All accounts, all cards, all assets. Flag them as stolen. Flag them as compromised. Shut it all down, now." "Confirmed, Mr. Jefferson," the voice on the other end said. "Executing Phoenix protocol." I watched the screen. The clerk picked up the black card. She inserted it into the chip reader. She smiled at Hunter, waiting for the receipt to print. Hunter was leaning against the counter, looking bored, checking his reflection in a mirror. The machine beeped, a harsh, dissonant sound. The clerk frowned. She looked at the screen. She typed something in and tried again. Beep. Declined. Hunter's head snapped up. I could see his lips moving. He was asking what the problem was. The clerk said something apologetic. Hunter laughed, a sharp bark of disbelief. He gestured for her to try again. "Do you know who I am?" His body language screamed. "Do you know how much money is behind that card?" She swiped it this time. Beep. Declined. The manager stepped out from the back office. He was a tall man with a severe face. He whispered to the clerk. She handed him the card. The manager looked at Hunter and shook his head. He did not hand the card back. He produced a pair of silver scissors from his pocket. Hunter lunged forward, his hand slamming onto the glass. The security guard at the door took a step closer, his hand resting on his belt. Hunter froze. The manager held the black card up and snipped it in half. The plastic fell onto the counter in 2 useless pieces. Keisha grabbed Hunter's arm. Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup. She fumbled in her purse and pulled out her own card. My card, really. The one I paid off every month. She handed it to the manager with a trembling hand. He didn't even run it. He typed the number into his terminal. He looked up at her and shook his head. "Confiscate," he mouthed. He held his hand out. Keisha looked like she was going to be sick. She surrendered the card. Then the panic set in. Real, visceral panic. I saw Keisha pull out her phone. My cell phone on the table next to me lit up. The screen flashed wife. I let it ring. I poured myself a glass of water and watched it vibrate against the mahogany table. It rang until it went to voicemail. Then it rang again immediately. Then Hunter called. Son-in-law. I stared at the names. These people who claimed to love me, who claimed to be my family, were now frantically trying to reach the man they thought was dead just so they could get their credit limit raised. They were arguing with the manager now. Hunter was shouting, pointing at the door, pointing at his watch. The guard stepped in. He grabbed Hunter by the elbow. Hunter tried to shake him off, but the guard was bigger. He escorted them toward the exit. Keisha was covering her face, trying to hide from the other customers who were staring and whispering. They were marched out of the store like common shoplifters. No diamond ring, no dignity, just the burning shame of rejection. 40 minutes later, they were back at my house. I switched the feed to the living room camera hidden in the smoke detector. The front door flew open so hard it banged against the wall. Hunter stormed in. He was a hurricane of impotent rage. He kicked the ottoman, sending it skidding across the floor. He grabbed a lamp from the side table and threw it against the fireplace. The bulb shattered with a pop. "He knows," Hunter screamed, his face red and distorted. "The old bastard knows everything. They said the account was frozen by the account holder, not the bank. The holder. That means he is alive, Keisha. He is alive and he is cutting us off." Keisha was pacing back and forth, her hands tangled in her hair. She looked like a woman on the edge of a breakdown. "Maybe it's a mistake," she stammered. "Maybe he's in the hospital and the bank did it automatically. We have to find him, Hunter. We have to fix this." "Fix this," Hunter roared. He swept his arm across the mantel, knocking off the family photos. The glass frames crunched under his boots. "There is no fixing this. The well is dry. Do you understand? We are broke. I have bookies in Vegas who are going to break my legs if I don't pay them by Friday. I needed that money, Keisha. You said he would be dead by now." "I gave him the poison," Keisha shrieked back. "I watched him drink it. He should be in a morgue, not calling the bank." She collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. "What are we going to do if he goes to the police?" "Shut up," Hunter yelled. "He won't go to the police. He's weak. He's scared. He's probably hiding in a motel somewhere, shaking in his boots." He started tearing the room apart. He pulled books off the shelves, shaking them to see if cash fell out. He ripped the paintings off the walls, looking for a wall safe he might have missed. "We need cash. We need to find his stash. Old men like him always keep cash in the house." I watched them destroy my home. I watched them tear apart the life I had built. But I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt cold satisfaction. Let them search. Let them destroy the furniture. Let them scream at the walls. They wouldn't find a dime. I had moved the emergency cash weeks ago when Leo first warned me about the strange man visiting Mom. They were trapped in a house they couldn't pay for, driving cars they couldn't fuel, living a life that was evaporating by the second. Hunter overturned my favorite armchair and began slashing the fabric with a pocket knife, looking for hidden money. Stuffing flew into the air like snow. "I'm going to find him," Hunter growled, breathless and sweating. "I'm going to find that old man, and I'm going to finish what you started. And then I'm going to take everything." "Good luck, son," I whispered to the screen. "Come and get it." The plan was set in motion at 3 a.m. Dante was an artist, and the city streets were his canvas. He had located an old Ford pickup that matched mine perfectly down to the rust spots on the wheel wells. He had it towed to a notorious stretch of road known as Dead Man's Curve, just outside the city limits, where the guardrail was weak and the drop was steep. He sent it over the edge. It crashed onto the rocks below and burst into flames. It was a spectacular piece of theater, a burning effigy of the man I used to be. I was already at St. Mary's Hospital. Dr. Vance had arranged everything. I was in a private room in the intensive care unit, hooked up to machines that beeped and hissed with rhythmic precision. A makeup artist from the local theater company, a woman Dante trusted with his life, had spent an hour working on my face. She applied purples and yellows to create bruising that looked terrifyingly real. She put a bandage around my head and fake blood in my hair. Vance gave me a mild sedative, just enough to keep my heart rate low and my breathing shallow. Just enough to make me look like a man clinging to life by a thread. At 4:15, the call was made. Detective Miller was a good cop who had been pushed into a bad corner by the city budget cuts years ago. I had helped him out with his pension issues. He owed me. He made the call to my house. I watched the feed on the tablet propped up on the medical tray. The phone rang in the living room where Hunter and Keisha were still raging about the frozen accounts. Keisha picked up. Her voice switched instantly from shrill anger to worried wife. "Yes, this is Mrs. Jefferson. Oh my God, is he okay? Where is he?" She hung up and looked at Hunter. Her face was not filled with grief. It was filled with calculation. She did not cry. She did not scream. She smiled. A cold, sharp smile that cut through the grainy video feed. "The police found the truck," she said. "It went off the road. They think he is dead, Hunter. They think he is finally dead." Hunter grabbed her and spun her around. "We did it, baby. The problem solved itself. Now we play the grieving family. We get the death certificate." We unlock the accounts. We win. They left the house 5 minutes later. They were dressed in sweatpants and hoodies, looking disheveled and panicked. The perfect picture of a family woken up by a nightmare. I turned off the tablet and handed it to Vance. I lay back against the pillows and closed my eyes. The sedative made my limbs feel heavy. I focused on my breathing, shallow, slow, barely there. I had to become a statue. I had to become a ghost in my own body. Half an hour later, I heard the commotion in the hallway. Keisha was screaming. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. "Where is my husband? I need to see my husband. Don't tell me to calm down. That is the love of my life in there." I heard nurses trying to soothe her. I heard the heavy footsteps of security guards. Then the door burst open. The smell of her perfume hit me first. That floral scent that used to make me smile now made my stomach turn. She rushed to the bedside. She grabbed my hand. Her skin was warm, but her touch felt like ice. "Bernie," she wailed. "Oh, Bernie, please don't leave me." She buried her face in my chest. I could feel her shaking. To the doctors and nurses watching from the door, she was sobbing. But I was the only one close enough to know the truth. She was not crying. She was laughing. It was a silent, dry heave of laughter vibrating against my ribs. Hunter stood at the foot of the bed. I kept my eyes closed, but I could sense his presence. He was looming. He was taking up space. He put a hand on Keisha's shoulder. "Be strong, Keisha," he said, his voice thick with fake emotion. "Bernie is a fighter. He will pull through." He didn't mean a word of it. He wanted me to flatline right there. He was mentally spending my money while staring at my bruised face. Then I heard another sound. A soft, genuine sound of heartbreak. Tasha. My daughter had arrived. She pushed past Hunter and fell to her knees beside the bed. She took my other hand. Her touch was different. It was gentle. It was desperate. "Daddy," she whispered. "Daddy, please wake up. You promised. You said you were not going to die. Please, Daddy, I need you." Her tears were hot on my skin. They burned me with guilt. I wanted to open my eyes. I wanted to squeeze her hand and tell her it was all a show, but I couldn't. Not yet. She had to believe it so they would believe it. Vance stepped in. His voice was grave. "I need everyone to step back, please. We need to check his vitals. The family needs to give him space." Tasha kissed my hand and stepped back, sobbing. Hunter guided her to the corner of the room, playing the supportive brother-in-law. Keisha did not move. She lingered by my head. She leaned down close to my ear. To the room it looked like she was whispering a final prayer or a word of love. But her lips brushed my ear and her whisper was like venom poured directly into my brain. "Die, you old bastard," she hissed. Her voice was so low only I could hear it. "Just let go, Bernie. Stop fighting. You are useless. You are broken. Just die so I can be rich. Do us all a favor and stop breathing." It took every ounce of will I possessed not to reach up and crush her throat. The rage was a physical pressure building behind my eyes. My heart monitor sped up. Beep, beep, beep. Vance noticed. "Mrs. Jefferson, please," he said firmly. "You are upsetting him. You need to step out, now." Keisha pulled back. She wiped a fake tear from her dry cheek. "I am sorry, doctor. I just wanted to tell him I love him." She looked at my face one last time. Her eyes were hard and flat like a shark's. She turned and walked out, her hips swaying slightly. Hunter followed her, guiding Tasha out of the room. The door clicked shut. I was alone with Vance. I opened my eyes. I gasped for air, feeling like I had been underwater for an hour. "Did you hear her?" I asked, my voice raspy. "Did you hear what that witch said to me?" Vance nodded. He checked the monitors. "I heard her, Bernie. And the microphones recorded every word. We have it all. But you need to stay calm. We are not done yet." We waited for an hour. We let them stew in the waiting room. We let them drink the bad hospital coffee and whisper their plans in the corner. Dante's team was listening to them out there too. They were talking about the funeral. They were talking about selling the house. They were already picking out caskets. Finally, Vance went out to get them. He brought them back into the room. I closed my eyes again. I let my jaw go slack. I let my hands rest limply on the sheets. Vance stood at the foot of the bed holding a clipboard. He looked at them over his glasses. "I have the results of the scans," Vance said. His tone was professional and devoid of hope. "Your husband has suffered a massive trauma to the brainstem. Coupled with the toxins we found in his system, which we believe came from environmental exposure, the damage is catastrophic." Keisha gasped. Is he going to die?" There was hope in her voice, so thin she barely hid it. "No," Vance said. "He is not going to die. His heart is strong. His lungs are functioning, but the connection between his brain and his body has been severed. We call it locked-in syndrome. He is paralyzed from the neck down. He cannot speak. He cannot move. He may be able to hear you, he may be able to see you, but he will never be able to respond. He will require 24-hour care for the rest of his life." The silence in the room was absolute. I could feel the air pressure change. Tasha let out a wail of despair. "No, No, that is worse than death. That is a prison. But Keisha was silent. I cracked my eyelids open just a fraction, a millimeter, just enough to see her face. She was not horrified. She was not devastated. A slow smile was spreading across her lips. It was the smile of a person who had just won the lottery. She looked at Hunter. They exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. They were thinking the exact same thing. If I was dead, there would be an autopsy. There would be investigations. The will would be read, and Tasha might get something. But if I was alive, if I was incapacitated, Keisha was my wife. She would have power of attorney. She would have control of the accounts. She would have control of me. She composed her face into a mask of tragic determination. She stepped forward and took my limp hand. "Doctor," she said, her voice trembling with false bravery, "we will take him home. We will take care of him. I cannot let my husband rot in a facility. I want to nurse him myself. It is what he would have wanted." Vance looked at her. He knew exactly what she was. "Are you sure, Mrs. Jefferson? This is a tremendous burden. It will require feeding tubes, catheters, constant monitoring." "I am sure," she said. She squeezed my hand hard, digging her nails into my palm. "I will take care of everything. I will never leave his side." I felt a chill run through my entire body that had nothing to do with the sedative. She was taking me home, not to care for me, but to torture me. She wanted me as a prisoner. She wanted to spend my money right in front of my paralyzed face. She wanted to bring her lover into my house and parade him before my helpless eyes. It was the cruelest fate she could imagine, and it was exactly what I wanted her to do. She was walking right into the trap. She thought she was taking home a vegetable. She had no idea she was bringing a Trojan horse into her living room. Hunter stepped up beside her. He put a hand on her waist. "You are a saint, Keisha," he said loud enough for the doctor to hear. "A true saint. We will get through this together. We will manage his assets. We will make sure his legacy is protected." Protected. That was a laugh. They were going to strip the carcass clean before the body was even cold. But they didn't know the carcass could still bite. Vance nodded. "Very well. If that is your decision, I will sign the release papers. We can have an ambulance transport him to your residence this evening." "Thank you," Dr. Keisha said. She looked down at my face. She brushed a hair from my forehead. Her touch was possessive, terrifying. "We are going to have so much fun, Bernie," she whispered. "Just you and me." I lay there motionless, trapped in my own body by choice. I listened to them leave the room to sign the papers that would sign my life away. Tasha stayed behind for a moment, kissing my forehead, crying softly. "I love you, Daddy," she said. "I will come visit every day. I promise." I waited until the door closed. Then I opened my eyes. I looked at Vance. He looked sick. "Are you sure about this?" "Bernie," he asked. "Once you leave this hospital, you are in enemy territory. I cannot protect you there. If they decide to finish the job with a pillow over your face, there is nothing I can do." I stared at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights hummed. "I know," I said. My voice was strong again. "But they won't kill me, Vance. Not yet. They need me alive to access the money. They need me alive to enjoy their victory. Their greed is my shield." I sat up and swung my legs over the side of the bed. I had a few hours before the ambulance ride, a few hours to prepare my mind for the hell I was about to enter. I was going back to my house, back to the room where I slept for 30 years. But this time I wasn't the master of the house. I was the prisoner. But every prisoner dreams of escape, and every escape starts with a riot. I was going to burn their world down from the inside out, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. "Get me a sandwich, Vance," I said, standing up and stretching my stiff limbs. "I need to eat. It is going to be a long night. And call Dante. Tell him the package is ready for delivery. Tell him to turn on the cameras. The show is about to start." The ambulance ride home was a blur of flashing lights and the smell of antiseptic, but the real horror started when the wheels of the gurney hit the hardwood floor of my front hallway. I heard the neighbors outside on the sidewalk. Mrs. Mabel from next door was crying loud enough for me to hear. She was telling the paramedics that Keisha was a saint. She said it was a blessing that a wife would dedicate her life to caring for a husband who was nothing more than a husk. I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit up and tell Mrs. Mabel that the devil did not wear horns, she wore designer heels and my mother's pearls. But I stayed limp. I let my head roll to the side as the paramedics lifted me into the hospital bed that had been set up in the middle of my living room. They had turned my sanctuary into a stage. The furniture was pushed against the walls. The rug where I used to play with Leo was rolled up in the corner. In the center was the bed, the IV stand, and the monitors that hummed with a low rhythmic beep. The paramedics were gentle. They tucked the sheets around me. They checked my vitals one last time. "Take care of him, ma'am," one of them said to Keisha. "Call us if his breathing changes." Keisha nodded, her face a mask of tragic determination. "I will," she whispered. "I will watch him like a hawk." The heavy front door closed, the lock clicked, and the atmosphere in the room changed instantly. It was like the air had been sucked out of the house. Keisha stopped crying. She did not wipe her eyes because there were no tears to wipe. She walked over to the window and shut the blinds, snapping them closed with a violence that made me flinch internally. Then she turned to look at me. Her face was not sad, it was bored. She walked over to the bed and looked down. She poked my cheek with a manicured nail. Not gently. She dug it in until it broke the skin. "Are you in there, Bernie?" she asked. Her voice was flat. "Can you hear me, old man? I know the doctor said you might be aware. I hope you are. I really hope you are in there screaming." She laughed a dry, soundless chuckle. "Welcome to your new life, baby. Or should I say your death sentence." She did not check my IV. She did not adjust my pillow. She turned around and walked into the kitchen. I heard the pop of a cork. She was opening champagne. Hunter came down the stairs a moment later. He was wearing my silk robe again. He walked into the room like he owned it. He looked at me with a sneer of pure disgust. "Is the vegetable comfortable?" he called out to Keisha. "He is fine," she yelled back. "He is quiet, just the way I like him." Hunter walked over to the bed. He had a glass of my best scotch in his hand. He took a sip and swirled the amber liquid. "This is good stuff, Pops," he said. "Shame you cannot taste it." He tilted the glass and poured a thin stream of alcohol onto my face. It stung my eyes. It ran into my nose, making me want to cough, to gag, to do anything to clear my airway. But I held my breath. I forced my throat to stay open. I let the burning liquid pool on the pillow next to my ear. "Oops," Hunter said. "My bad." He leaned in close, his breath smelling of expensive liquor and cheap malice. "You know I always hated you," he whispered. "You walked around like you were some kind of king. Mr. Self-Made Man, Mr. High and Mighty. You looked at me like I was dirt. Well, look at you now. You are not a king anymore, Bernie. You are just a piece of rotting meat in a diaper." He spat on me. A thick glob of saliva landed on my forehead. It trickled down toward my eye. My hands twitched under the sheet. Every muscle in my body screamed to lunge, to grab him by the throat and squeeze until his eyes popped. The rage was a physical thing, a ball of fire in my gut that threatened to consume me. But I remembered the plan. I remembered the cameras hidden in the smoke detectors. I remembered Dante watching. I remembered the long game. I lay there and let the spit run down my face. I accepted the humiliation because it was the fuel I needed to burn them later. The days that followed were a blur of agony. They stopped feeding me real food. Keisha said it was too much work to blend things. She hooked up a bag of cheap nutrient solution to my feeding tube. Just enough to keep my heart beating. Just enough to keep me alive to sign papers when they figured out how to forge my signature perfectly. I was always thirsty. My mouth was a desert. My tongue felt like a piece of dry leather. I would hear them running water in the kitchen. I would hear the ice maker clinking, and I would pray for just one drop. They stopped changing me. The indignity of it was worse than the pain. Lying in my own filth for hours while they sat 10 feet away watching television on my 60-inch screen. They watched comedies. They laughed at sitcoms while the smell of my own waste filled the air around the bed. "God, that smells awful," Keisha would say, wrinkling her nose. "Spray some air freshener, Hunter." He would spray a cloud of chemical lavender over me, choking me with the artificial scent that mixed with the stench of neglect. But the worst torture was not the physical neglect. It was the psychological warfare. They wanted to erase me while I was still in the room. They wanted to prove that I was nothing. One evening, about 3 days in, Hunter brought Keisha into the living room. He led her to the sofa directly in my line of sight. He looked at me and winked. Then he started to undress her. I tried to close my eyes, but my eyelids felt heavy and stiff. I tried to look away, but I could not move my head. I was forced to watch. I watched the man who married my daughter put his hands on my wife. I watched them be intimate in the house I bought with my blood and sweat. They were loud, performative. They wanted me to hear every sound. They wanted me to know that I had been replaced, that I was less than a ghost. I was furniture. "Look at him," Hunter panted mid-act, pointing at me. "Look at the old cuckold. He likes it. I bet he likes watching his wife with a real man." Keisha laughed a high, cruel sound. "He never could satisfy me anyway," she said. "He was always too tired, too old. You are the only man I ever wanted, Hunter." I retreated into my mind. I built a wall, brick by brick. I went back to the days in the garage, fixing engines with grease under my fingernails. I went back to the day Tasha was born, holding her tiny hand. I went back to the sound of Leo laughing when I taught him to ride a bike. I blocked them out. I had to. If I stayed in that room with them, I would have died of a broken heart. I waited until they were done, until they went upstairs to sleep, leaving me in the dark with the smell of their betrayal hanging in the air. That is when the house became quiet. That is when the real magic happened. Around 2 a.m, I heard a soft creak on the stairs. It was a sound I knew well. It was the sound of a little boy trying not to wake his parents. Leo. He came into the living room like a shadow. He was wearing his superhero pajamas, the ones I bought him for his birthday. He looked terrified. He looked at the shape of me in the bed and hesitated. He thought I was a vegetable too. He thought his father was gone. He crept closer, his small bare feet silent on the floor. He stood by the bed and looked at my bruised face. "Dad," he whispered. It was the saddest sound I had ever heard. "Dad, are you in there?" I waited. I had to be sure no one was watching from the stairs. I listened for the creak of floorboards above. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. I opened my eyes. I turned my head slowly on the pillow. I looked at my son. Leo gasped. He put his hands over his mouth to stifle a scream. He took a step back. I winked. A slow, deliberate wink. His eyes went wide. "Dad," he breathed. "You are awake." I lifted my finger to my lips. "Shh," I whispered. My voice was a wreck unused for days, scratchy as sandpaper. "Do not let them hear." Leo nodded furiously, tears spilling onto his cheeks. He rushed forward and grabbed my hand. His grip was strong. It was life. It was energy. "Dad, they said you were brain dead. They said you would never wake up." "They lied, son," I whispered. "Just like they lied about Chicago. I am here. But it is a secret. Our secret. You cannot tell anyone, Leo. Not even Tasha. Not yet. It is too dangerous." He nodded, wiping his nose on his sleeve. "I promise, Dad. I promise. Are you hungry?" I nodded. "I am starving, son." He ran to the kitchen. He did not turn on the light. He opened the fridge and the pale blue light illuminated his small, focused face. He came back with a carton of orange juice and a spoon. He fed me sips of juice. It was sour and cold, and it tasted like heaven. It washed away the taste of whiskey and bile. He found a jar of peanut butter and fed me small spoonfuls. It stuck to the roof of my mouth, but it gave me strength. "Why are they doing this, Dad?" he asked, feeding me another spoon. "Why does Mom hate you?" "It is not hate, Leo," I said. "It is greed. They want the money. They want the things. They have forgotten about the people." "I hate them," he said. His voice was hard. A child should not have that much hate in his voice. "I hate them for hurting you. I want to call the police." "No," I said, gripping his hand. "Not yet. We need proof. We need to catch them when they think they have won. We are playing a game, Leo, a very long game, and we are going to win. But I need you to be my soldier. Can you do that? Can you be a spy for me?" He straightened his back. He looked like a miniature version of me 40 years ago. "Yes, sir," he said. "What do I do?" "You watch," I said. "You listen. You tell me everything they say when they think I cannot hear. And Leo, you stay safe. If they get angry, if they get scary, you hide. You understand?" "I understand, Dad." He stayed with me for an hour. He held my hand while I drifted in and out of sleep. He fixed my pillow. He pulled the sheet up to cover my cold feet. He did more for me in 1 hour than his mother had done in 10 years. When the sun began to turn the sky gray, he kissed my forehead. "I have to go back," he whispered, "before they wake up." "Go, son," I said. "I love you." "I love you too, Dad." He crept back upstairs. I watched him go. The pain in my body was still there. The thirst was coming back. The humiliation of my situation was a heavy weight on my chest. But something had changed. I was not just enduring anymore. I was planning. I had an ally on the inside. I had a reason to fight that was bigger than money and bigger than revenge. I looked up at the smoke detector where the camera lens glinted faintly. I knew Dante was watching. I knew the evidence was piling up. Every insult, every slap, every stolen dollar. It was all being recorded. I closed my eyes and let the rage settle into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. Let them starve me. Let them spit on me. Let them parade their sins in front of my face. Every second of suffering was just adding interest to the debt they owed me. And when the time came to collect, I was going to take everything. I was going to leave them with nothing but the ashes of the life they tried to steal. I drifted off to sleep, dreaming of the look on Hunter's face when the dead man finally stood up. The hunger in my belly was a sharp, constant ache, but it was nothing compared to the nausea that rolled through me as I listened to the conversation coming through the tiny earbud hidden deep in my ear canal. Leo had done exactly what I asked. He had slid his iPad under the kitchen island before he went to school. He had left it recording and transmitting. Now, as I lay in my own filth in the living room pretending to be a vegetable, I was virtually sitting at the table with the two monsters who were eating my food and plotting the destruction of my bloodline. They were stressed. I could hear it in the clinking of silverware and the heavy sighs. The freeze on the accounts had terrified them. They were bleeding cash. They had pawned my watches. They had sold Keisha's designer bags. But the hole was too deep and they were still digging. They needed to cut expenses. And in their twisted, drug-addled minds, there was one expense that was entirely unnecessary. My son. We cannot keep him, Keisha Hunter said. His voice was muffled by a mouthful of eggs. Eggs that I paid for. He is dead weight. Do you know how much kids cost? Food, clothes, school supplies. We are bleeding dry here. We need every cent for the lawyers to get the old man's accounts unlocked. The kid is just a drain. I waited for Keisha to defend her child. I waited for the maternal instinct that even wolves possess to kick in. I waited for her to slap him and tell him that Leo was her flesh and blood. But the silence stretched out. It was a cold, calculating silence. He is getting suspicious, Keisha finally said. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. I catch him looking at me. He has those same judging eyes as his father. Yesterday I found him lurking in the hallway when we were talking about the will. He is too quiet. He knows something. He is a liability. Hunter agreed. If he talks to the social workers when they come to check on Bernie, if he says one wrong thing about how we are caring for him, we are finished. We cannot risk it. We need to get rid of him. Get rid of him. The words hung in the air like smoke. My heart hammered against my ribs. I prayed the heavy duvet covered the rapid rise and fall of my chest. They were discussing my 8-year-old son like he was a broken appliance or a sick dog. What are the options? Keisha asked. She sounded like she was choosing a color for the curtains, not like she was discussing the fate of her only child. Hunter's voice took on that slick salesman tone he used when he was trying to con me out of money. I looked into military schools. There is one in Alabama. Strict, cheap. They take problem cases. We could say he is acting out because of your condition. We could say he is violent. Keisha snorted. Military school costs money, Hunter. Even the cheap ones. We do not have $5,000 a month to spend on a brat. We need a solution that is free. Or better yet, one that pays us. I clenched my jaw so hard I felt a tooth crack. She wanted to sell him. Or worse. State care, Hunter suggested. We could surrender him. We tell the state that with Bernie's condition you cannot cope. You are a grieving wife caring for an invalid husband. The stress is too much. You are having a breakdown. No one would blame you for giving up the kid. You are the victim here, Keisha. I could hear the smile in her voice when she replied. That is good. That is really good. The tragic heroine, forced to give up her son to care for her dying husband. The courts would eat it up. We could probably even get a stipend for my emotional distress. They laughed. They sat in my kitchen drinking my coffee and laughed about throwing my son into the foster system. They laughed about erasing him from their lives so they could have more room to spend the money I earned. But what if he talks? Hunter asked. What if he tells them what he sees here? Who is going to believe him? Keisha snapped. He is 8. We tell them he is a pathological liar. We tell them he is traumatized and makes up stories for attention. I am his mother. My word is law. Besides, if we send him to a state home in another district, we will never see him again. He will be someone else's problem. My vision went red behind my closed eyelids. The rage was different this time. It was not the hot, fiery anger of the betrayal. It was cold. It was absolute. It was the kind of rage that topples empires. Keisha was not just a bad wife, she was a monster. She was a creature void of a soul. She had looked at the boy she gave birth to, the boy she nursed and held, and she saw nothing but a line item on a budget she wanted to cut. "I hate him," Hunter grumbled. "I hate the way he looks at me. Like he is better than me. Little creep, he is always watching. I caught him in here the other night staring at Bernie. Just staring. It gave me the creeps. I wanted to smack him. You should have," Keisha said. "Maybe it would knock some sense into him. But we have to be careful. No bruises where they can be seen. Not until he is gone." Hunter made a noise of agreement. "When do we do it?" "Tomorrow," Keisha said. "I cannot take another day of his face. I will call social services in the morning. I will put on my best crying act. By tomorrow night he will be gone. And then it is just us, baby. Just us and the money. Tomorrow." The word echoed in my mind. They were going to discard him tomorrow. They were going to rip him out of his home, away from his father, away from his life, and toss him into the system like garbage. They were going to break his spirit so they could buy more shoes and drink more champagne. The conversation shifted. They started talking about dinner. They started talking about what movie they wanted to watch on my big screen TV. They moved on from the destruction of a human life as easily as changing the channel. I lay there in the living room feeling the vibration of their footsteps as they moved around the house. I felt the presence of my son upstairs, probably hiding in his room, terrified and alone. He was counting on me. He was waiting for the signal. He was being the soldier I asked him to be, and his own mother was sharpening the knife to cut him loose. I had heard enough. I had heard more than any father should ever have to hear. The time for waiting was over. The time for gathering evidence was done. I had hours of recordings. I had video of their adultery. I had financial records of their theft. And now I had the conspiracy to abandon a minor. But legal justice was too slow. Court dates were months away. Lawyers would argue and plead. These two deserved something more immediate. They deserved to feel the ground crumble beneath their feet. They deserved to feel the same terror they had inflicted on my son. I waited until I heard them go out to the back patio to smoke. It was their ritual. They would smoke my imported cigars and talk about the yachts they were going to buy. I knew I had about 10 minutes. I slowly moved my hand under the sheets. My muscles were stiff from days of enforced immobility, but the adrenaline was a powerful drug. I found the burner phone taped to the underside of the bed frame. I pulled it loose. I kept it under the blanket, shielding the light of the screen with my body. I pulled up Dante's contact. My fingers trembled, not from weakness, but from the sheer force of the violence I wanted to unleash. I typed 3 words: execute, now, burn. It was the code we had agreed upon. It meant the observation phase was over. It meant the protection phase was over. It meant it was time to take out the trash. I hit send. I watched the little arrow fly off the screen. Then I slid the phone back into its hiding place. I lay back and took a deep breath. The air in the room smelled of stale air freshener and my own sweat, but beneath it I could smell something else. I could smell the rain coming. A storm was brewing. I closed my eyes and visualized what was about to happen. I saw Dante making the calls. I saw the bank managers hitting the final kill switches. I saw the repossession orders being printed. I saw the police warrants being signed. But most of all, I saw myself. I saw the old mechanic standing up. I saw the invalid rising from his deathbed. I saw the look on Hunter's face when he realized that the man he had spit on was not only alive, but standing right behind him. I thought about Leo upstairs. I sent a silent message to him. "Hold on, son. Just one more night. Dad is coming, and I am bringing hell with me." The back door opened. They came back in laughing about something. The smoke of the cigars clung to their clothes. They walked past my bed without even glancing at me. I was furniture to them. I was a solved problem. Enjoy it, I thought. Laugh while you can. Because tomorrow the laughter dies. Tomorrow you find out that you didn't just try to kill an old man. You tried to kill a Jefferson. And we do not die easy. I let my breathing even out. I let my face relax into the slack-jawed mask of the invalid. But inside I was coiling like a spring. I was ready. The water had risen high enough. The dam was about to break. and they were going to drown. The front door rattled on its hinges as someone pounded on it from the outside. I lay in my hospital bed in the center of the living room listening to the chaos unfold. Keisha was shouting. She was trying to hold the door shut, trying to keep the world out. But the person on the other side was desperate. It was Tasha. My daughter had come. She had come with the check I gave her, or maybe she had come just to see her dying father. Either way, she was not taking no for an answer. "Go away, Tasha," Keisha screamed through the wood. "He is sleeping. You cannot see him right now. The doctor said no visitors." "Liar," Tasha yelled back. Her voice was shrill with panic. "I can hear Leo. Why is my little brother crying, Keisha? Open this door or I swear to God I will drive my car through it." There was a crash. Tasha had thrown her weight against the door, or maybe she had kicked it. The lock gave way with a splintering crack. The door flew open, hitting Keisha and sending her stumbling back into the hallway wall. Tasha stormed in. She looked frantic. Her hair was wild, her eyes were wide, and she was breathing hard. She stopped dead in her tracks when she saw the living room. It was not the sterile, peaceful hospital environment Keisha had described over the phone. It was a wreckage. Furniture was overturned. Empty takeout boxes and wine bottles littered the floor. The air smelled of stale alcohol, unwashed bodies, and the chemical stench of the air freshener they used to mask my own waste. And there, in the middle of it all, was me. Her father, the man she thought was a titan of industry, now reduced to a skeleton in a dirty gown hooked up to machines that beeped in the gloom. I saw her face crumble. She put a hand over her mouth to stifle a gag. The reality of my situation hit her like a physical blow. She saw the bruises on my arms where they had roughly inserted the IVs. She saw the dryness of my cracked lips. She saw the neglect. "Oh my God," she whispered. She walked toward me, her step shaky. "Daddy, what have they done to you?" Before she could reach me, a shadow detached itself from the kitchen doorway. Hunter. He was swaying slightly, a bottle of my expensive bourbon dangling from his hand. He was wearing my robe and it hung open, revealing his chest. He looked like a king of a ruined castle. "Well, well," he slurred. "The prodigal daughter returns. Did you bring the money, babe? Did you bring the check from the old man's secret stash?" Tasha turned to look at him. For the first time in her life, she did not look at him with adoration. She looked at him with confusion that was rapidly hardening into horror. "Hunter," she said, "why is the house like this? Why does Dad look like he is dying of thirst? You said you were taking care of him. You said he was comfortable." "He is fine," Hunter spat, taking a swig from the bottle. "He is a vegetable, Tasha. He does not feel anything. He does not know where he is. Who cares if the sheets are dirty? Who cares if he has not had water in a few hours? He is just a bag of meat waiting to expire. Now give me the check." Tasha took a step back. She clutched her purse to her chest. "No," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "No, you are lying. You have been lying about everything." "Dad was right." Hunter's face darkened. He took a step toward her. "What did you say? What did the old man tell you?" "He told me to be careful," Tasha said. She looked at Keisha, who was rubbing her bruised shoulder by the door. "He told me you were after the money. I did not believe him. I defended you, Hunter. I told him you loved us. But look at you. Look at this place. You are monsters." From upstairs, a high-pitched scream cut through the tension. It was Leo. "Let me go. I want my dad." The sound tore through me. My son was up there, probably locked in his room, terrified out of his mind. Tasha's head snapped. "Leo," she shouted. She turned to run toward the stairs, but Hunter moved fast. He lunged forward and grabbed her by the arm. He yanked her back so hard she spun around and fell to her knees. "You are not going anywhere," he growled. "Not until I get that money. Give me the purse, Tasha. Get off me," she screamed, kicking at him. She scrambled backward, trying to get away from the man she had married, the man she thought was her partner. Hunter laughed. It was an ugly sound devoid of any humanity. "You are pathetic, Tasha. You always were. Do you think I married you for your looks? Do you think I married you for your personality? You are boring. You are weak. I married you because your father is rich. I married you because I thought the old man would kick the bucket and leave us the empire, but he just keeps hanging on." He reached down and grabbed her hair, pulling her head back. Tasha cried out, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Daddy," she whimpered. "Help me." I lay there, my muscles twitching with the effort to stay still. The rage was building inside me, pressure mounting like steam in a boiler. But I had to wait. I had to let him show her everything. Hunter raised his hand. The sound of the slap was loud in the quiet room. It echoed off the walls. Tasha fell sideways, holding her cheek. She stared at him in shock. He had never hit her before. The verbal abuse, the gaslighting, sure. But this was physical. This was the line. "Give me the check," he roared, "or I will give you something to really cry about." Suddenly, a small figure came flying down the stairs. Leo. He must have picked the lock or climbed out a window. He was a blur of motion. He held a plastic lightsaber toy in his hand. He rushed at Hunter, swinging the toy with all his might. "Leave her alone," he screamed. "You bad man! Leave my sister alone!" The plastic toy hit Hunter in the thigh. It probably did not hurt, but it surprised him. He let go of Tasha and turned on Leo. "You little rat!" he snarled. He grabbed the toy from Leo's hand and snapped it in half. Then he grabbed Leo by the front of his shirt and lifted him off the ground. Leo kicked and flailed his small fists, hitting Hunter's chest. "Put me down. My dad is going to kill you." Hunter shook him like a rag doll. "Your dad is dead, kid. He is right there and he cannot do a thing to save you. He is useless. Just like you." He raised his hand again, fist clenched, ready to strike a child. Ready to strike my son. That was it. The dam broke. The boiler exploded. The plan did not matter anymore. The evidence did not matter. Nothing mattered except the blood pounding in my ears and the red haze covering my vision. I triggered the release on the restraint straps hidden under the sheets. I had loosened them hours ago, working them free while they slept. I gripped the side rails of the hospital bed. My knuckles turned white. Hunter's fist was in the air. Tasha was screaming on the floor. Keisha was watching with a look of bored detachment. I sat up. It was not a struggle. It was not a weak invalid trying to rise. It was a resurrection. I surged upward, the sheets falling away from my chest. I ripped the IV needle out of my arm. Blood sprayed a crimson arc across the white linen. I did not feel it. I felt nothing but power. The movement caught Hunter's eye. He froze, his fist still raised. He looked over his shoulder. His eyes bulged. His mouth dropped open. He looked like he was seeing a corpse climb out of a grave. Keisha screamed, a short, sharp sound of pure terror. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. My bare feet hit the floor. I stood up. I straightened my back, unfolding to my full height of 6 feet 2 inches. I ignored the dizziness. I ignored the weakness in my legs. I ran on pure adrenaline and hate. I looked at Hunter. I did not blink. I did not shout. I just looked at him with the eyes of a man who has looked death in the face and sent it away because he had work to do. "Put my son down," I said. My voice was not the raspy whisper of the invalid. It was the deep, commanding boom of Bernard Jefferson. It was the voice that made union leaders sweat and competitors fold. Hunter's hand opened involuntarily. Leo dropped to the floor, landing on his feet and scrambling over to Tasha. They huddled together, terrified and awestruck, watching the transformation. Hunter took a step back. He stumbled over a wine bottle. He held his hands up, palms out. "Bernie," he stammered. "Bernie, wait. I can explain. It is a miracle. You are cured." I took a step toward him, then another. I walked through the debris of my life. I walked through the trash they had made of my home. I reached down and picked up the tire iron that Hunter had left on the coffee table days ago. He had been using it as a paperweight for my stolen documents. I gripped the cold steel. It felt good. It felt familiar. "There are no miracles here, son," I said. "Only consequences." Keisha tried to run for the door. She scrambled past Tasha, trying to get to the freedom of the night, but the front door slammed shut. Dante stepped out from the shadows of the hallway where he had entered while they were distracted. He locked the deadbolt. He crossed his arms. "Going somewhere?" Mrs. Jefferson Dante asked. "The show is just getting to the good part." Keisha backed away, trapped. She looked from Dante to me. Her face was gray. I focused on Hunter. He was backing away until he hit the fireplace. He had nowhere to go. He looked at the tire iron in my hand. He looked at the rage in my eyes. "You touched my daughter," I said, stepping closer. "You touched my son. You poisoned my body. You destroyed my home." I raised the iron. Hunter cowered, covering his head with his arms. "Please, Bernie," he sobbed. "Please don't kill me." I lowered the iron slowly. I leaned in close until I could smell the fear on him. It smelled like sweat and urine. "Killing you would be too easy," I whispered. "I am not going to kill you, Hunter. I am going to break you. I am going to take everything you have, everything you are. And when I am done, you will wish you were dead." I turned to Tasha. She was staring at me. tears streaming down her face, but there was hope in her eyes now. There was a fierce pride. "Get the kids," I told her. "Take Leo. Go to the car." "But Dad," she started. "Go," I roared. "Do not let them see this." She nodded, scrambling up and grabbing Leo's hand. She dragged him toward the door. Dante stepped aside to let them pass. I turned back to the monsters in my living room. Just me, them, and the truth. The awakening was over. The purge was about to begin. The tire iron felt heavy and cold in my hand, but it was a good weight. It was the weight of justice. Hunter was pressed against the marble fireplace, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped rat looking for a sewer grate. He looked at me, and he did not see the father-in-law he had mocked. He did not see the invalid he had spit on. He saw a man who had crawled back from the edge of the grave specifically to put him in it. "You are dead," he whispered, his voice trembling so hard the words barely came out. "We killed you. I saw you drink it. I saw the doctor sign the papers. You are supposed to be dead, old man." I took a step closer. My bare feet crunched on the broken glass of the family photos they had smashed. I did not feel the cuts. I did not feel the arsenic still coursing through my veins. I felt only the cold clarity of a soldier clearing a room. "I am not dead, Hunter," I said, my voice low and steady. "But you are about to wish you were." Keisha was shaking by the door. She looked at Dante, who was blocking the exit with his arms crossed and a grim smile on his face. She looked back at me. Her mask of arrogance had shattered completely. She was not the mastermind anymore. She was just a greedy woman who had bet everything on a lie and lost. "Bernie, please," she stammered. "We can talk about this." I was confused. He forced me. Hunter made me do it. I did not even look at her. I kept my eyes locked on Hunter. He was the one who hit my daughter. He was the one who raised a hand to my son. He was the one who poured whiskey on my face while I lay helpless. He was the priority. Hunter saw that talking was useless. He saw the murder in my eyes. The survival instinct of a cornered animal kicked in. His hand went to the pocket of my robe. He pulled out the switchblade he had used to slash my furniture. The blade clicked open, catching the light. "Stay back!" he screamed, waving the knife wildly. "I will cut you. I swear to God I will gut you like a fish." I laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound. "You are going to bring a knife to a war, son. You really are stupid. Really are." He lunged. It was a desperate, sloppy attack. He aimed for my stomach, hoping to end it quick, but he had never fought for his life. He had only fought for money. I had fought in jungles where the mud tried to eat you and the shadows had teeth. I did not need to be young. I just needed to be smarter. I sidestepped his thrust. I let the blade slice the air inches from my ribs. As he stumbled forward off balance, I brought the tire iron down. I did not aim for his head. That would have been mercy. I aimed for the arm that held the knife, the arm that had struck Tasha. The steel bar connected with his forearm with a sickening crunch. The sound of bone snapping echoed through the silent house. Hunter screamed. It was a high-pitched wail of pure agony. The knife clattered to the floor. He fell to his knees, clutching his broken arm, cradling it against his chest. "My arm," he sobbed. "You broke my arm." I kicked him in the chest, sending him sprawling onto his back. I stood over him, the tire iron raised. "I am just getting started," I growled. Keisha screamed and ran at me. She picked up a heavy glass vase from the side table and swung it at my head. I saw the movement in my peripheral vision. I did not turn. I simply swung my left arm back, catching her in the throat with a clothesline strike. It was not enough to crush her windpipe, but it was enough to stop her cold. She dropped the vase. It shattered on the floor. She fell back, gasping for air, clutching her throat, her eyes bulging. She looked at me with absolute terror. She realized then that the man she had married, the gentle provider, was gone. In his place was a stranger capable of violence she could not comprehend. I turned my attention back to Hunter. He was trying to crawl away, pushing himself backward with his good arm and his legs. He was crying, snot running down his face, mixing with the tears. "Please, Bernie," he begged. "I will go. I will leave town. You will never see me again. Just let me go." I stepped on his ankle, pinning him to the floor. "You are not going anywhere," I said. "Not until you understand what you did. You came into my house. You ate my food. You spent my money. And you thought because I was old, because I was kind, that I was weak." I leaned down, getting right in his face. I grabbed the lapels of my silk robe, the one he had stolen, and hauled him up until our noses were touching. "You hit my daughter," I whispered. You threatened my son. That is a debt you can only pay in blood." I threw him back down. I raised the tire iron again. He curled into a ball, protecting his head, waiting for the blow that would kill him. I looked at the steel bar. I looked at the shivering, broken man beneath me. It would be so easy. One swing, one moment of release. But then I thought of Leo waiting in the car. I thought of Tasha. If I killed him, I would go to prison. I would leave them alone again. And he was not worth it. He was not worth one more day of my life. I lowered the iron. I looked at Dante. He nodded. He knew I had made the call. "Get up," I barked. Hunter looked at me confused. He cradled his broken arm, whimpering. "What?" "Get up," I roared, before I change my mind. He scrambled to his feet, leaning against the wall for support. Keisha dragged herself up, still wheezing, holding her throat. They stood together, a pathetic pair of broken villains. "Take it off," I said, pointing at the robe Hunter was wearing. He blinked. "What?" "Take off my robe," I said. "Take off my watch. Take off the shoes you bought with my credit card. Take it all off." He hesitated. I raised the tire iron. He flinched and started stripping. He struggled with the robe using only one hand. He kicked off the shoes. He fumbled with the watch clasp, crying out in pain as his broken arm moved. "You too, Keisha," I said, turning to her. "The dress, the jewelry, the earrings, the ring Hunter bought you with my money. Take it off." "But Bernie," she raspy, "I will be naked." "I do not care," I said. "Those are my things. You bought them with stolen money. You leave this house exactly how you came into it. With nothing." She cried as she unzipped the dress. She cried as she took off the diamond earrings. She cried as she pulled the ring from her finger and threw it on the floor. They stood in my living room in their underwear, shivering, shamed, exposed. The luxury they had killed for was a pile of fabric on the floor. Dante opened the front door. The night air blew in. It was freezing cold. A winter chill that cut to the bone. "Out," I said. They looked at the open door. They looked at the darkness outside. "Bernie, please," Hunter said, his teeth chattering. "It is freezing. We have no money. We have no phones. Where will we go?" "I do not care," I said. "Go to hell. Go to the gutter. Just get out of my house." I advanced on them, swinging the iron. They ran. They stumbled out the door onto the porch and down the steps. Their bare feet hit the cold pavement. I followed them out. I stood on my porch, the king of my castle once again. I watched them running down the street, huddled together against the wind. The neighbors were watching. Mrs. Mabel was peering through her curtains. The man across the street had come out to walk his dog. They saw everything. They saw the golden couple running half naked and broken into the night. I watched until they disappeared around the corner. Then I looked down at the pile of clothes and jewelry on my porch. I kicked it aside. I took a deep breath of the cold air. It tasted clean. It tasted like victory. The poison was still in my blood, but the rot was gone from my house. I turned back to Dante. He was smiling. "Nice work, Bernie," he said. "We are not done yet," I said. I walked back inside. The house was a mess. It was destroyed, but it was mine. I went to the window. I saw Tasha's car parked down the street. I saw her face pressed against the glass. I waved. She opened the door and got out. Leo jumped out behind her. They ran to me. I met them on the lawn. I dropped the tire iron in the grass. Tasha hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. She was crying, but this time they were tears of relief. "Is it over?" she asked. "Is he gone?" "He is gone, baby," I said. "He is never coming back." Leo hugged my leg. "You did it, Dad," he said. "You beat the bad guys." I picked him up. He was heavy, but I didn't care. I held him close. "Yes, son," I said. "We beat them." I looked at my house. The lights were on. It was warm inside. We had a lot of cleaning to do. We had a lot of healing to do. But we were safe. "Let us go inside," I said. "I think it is time for a real family dinner." We walked back into the house and I closed the door, locking out the cold and the darkness forever. The purge was complete. Now it was time to rebuild. The lights of the Jefferson Foundation Gala were blindingly bright. It had been 7 days since the night of the purge. 7 days since I threw the trash out of my house. Tonight I was not Bernie the mechanic. I was Bernard Jefferson, the founder of the city's largest logistics empire. I wore a tuxedo that cost more than Hunter's car used to be worth. I stood on the balcony overlooking the grand ballroom of the hotel I owned. Below me, 500 of the city's elite were drinking champagne and donating millions to my children's charity. The mayor was there. The police commissioner was there. The press was there in full force. Tasha stood beside me. She looked beautiful in a dark blue gown. She was not the scared mouse she had been a week ago. She stood tall. Her eyes were clear. Leo was with the nanny in the VIP suite upstairs, safe and sound. We were rebuilding. We were strong. But we knew the rats were not done yet. Dante had warned me. He told me that desperation makes people stupid. He told me that Hunter and Keisha were cornered animals. They had no money, no home, no allies. They were sleeping in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, and tonight they were going to try their final Hail Mary play. I saw the commotion at the main entrance before I heard it. The security guards I hired were big men, but they had orders. If the rats show up, let them in. Let them hang themselves. The heavy oak doors swung open. A hush fell over the room. The string quartet stopped playing. Keisha and Hunter walked in. They looked like ghosts of their former selves. Keisha's hair was unkempt, pulled back in a messy bun. She wore a dress that looked stained and wrinkled, probably the only one she had left. Her face was gaunt, her makeup applied with a shaking hand. Hunter looked worse. His arm was in a sling that cast dirty gray. His face was bruised from where I had kicked him. He wore a suit that was 2 sizes too big, clearly bought from a thrift store. He looked erratic. He looked dangerous, but not in the way he wanted to be. They marched toward the stage. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Whispers rippled through the room. Who are they? Is that his wife? What happened to them? They reached the platform where the podium stood. Hunter grabbed the microphone. It screeched with feedback, causing the crowd to wince. "Listen to me," Hunter screamed, his voice cracking. He pointed a shaking finger up at the balcony where I stood. "That man is a fraud. Bernard Jefferson is a monster. He beat us. He threw us out on the street. He is abusing his family." Keisha grabbed the mic from him. Tears streamed down her face. Fake tears. I knew the difference now. "Please help us," she wailed, playing to the cameras. "He is mentally unstable. He attacked my husband. He kicked his own grandson out of the house. We have nothing. He stole everything from us. We just want justice. We want the world to know the truth about the great Bernard Jefferson." The press cameras flashed blindingly. Reporters shouted questions. "Is this true, Mr. Jefferson? Did you assault them? Why are they destitute?" The murmurs in the room grew louder. Doubt began to creep into the eyes of my donors. It was a good performance. It was their best yet. They were banking on my silence. They were banking on my privacy. They thought I would pay them millions just to make them go away and save my reputation. I gripped the railing of the balcony. I looked down at them. They looked up at me with defiant sneers. They thought they had trapped me. They thought the court of public opinion would save them. I signaled the sound technician. Cut the mic. The sound system died. Hunter was shouting, but his voice was swallowed by the vast room. I walked down the grand staircase. Tasha walked beside me, her head held high. We moved slowly, deliberately. The crowd turned to watch us. I walked right up to the stage. I stood 5 feet from them. I did not look angry. I looked disappointed. "You want the truth?" I said, my voice booming without a microphone projecting to the back of the room. "You want these good people to know who I really am, and who you really are." "Yes," Keisha hissed. Tell them how you broke Hunter's arm. Tell them how you left us to freeze." I turned to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. My wife and my son-in-law seem to have forgotten why we are here. They say I am a monster. They say I am a fraud. They say they are victims." I motioned to Dante, who was standing in the control booth high above the floor. "Light it up, Dante." The massive screen behind the stage flickered to life. It was 500 inches of high-definition reality. The room went dark. The only light came from the giant projection. The first image appeared. It was grainy black and white footage from a night vision camera. It showed my living room. It showed a hospital bed. It showed me lying helpless, hooked up to machines. And it showed Hunter and Keisha. The video played. The audio was crystal clear, amplified by the concert speakers. "Look at him." Hunter's voice boomed through the ballroom. "Look at the old cuckold. He likes it." On the screen, 500 people watched as Hunter and Keisha undressed each other in front of my paralyzed body. They watched them mock me. They watched them drink my liquor and spit on my floor. Gasps of horror erupted from the crowd. The mayor covered his mouth. The police commissioner's eyes narrowed. Hunter froze on stage. He looked up at the screen, seeing his own sins magnified to the size of a billboard. "No," he whispered. "That is fake. That is AI." But the video changed. Now it was audio. A black screen with a waveform moving. It was the recording from the bathroom, the one Leo had heard. "Tonight is the last night for the old man," Keisha's voice echoed through the hall. "The medicine has soaked in enough. His heart will just stop." Keisha let out a strangled cry. She lunged for the screen as if she could tear it down with her bare hands. But she stopped when the next image appeared. It was a medical document. A toxicology report. The words were highlighted in red. "Patient Bernard Jefferson. Toxin arsenic. Level lethal." The crowd went silent. A heavy, suffocating silence. This was not a domestic dispute. This was attempted murder. The evidence was right there in black and white, stamped by Dr. Vance, who stepped forward from the crowd, nodding solemnly to confirm the authenticity. But I was not done. I had one more nail for the coffin. The screen changed again. This time, it was the kitchen recording. The conversation about Leo. "He is dead weight," Hunter's voice sneered. "We need to get rid of him. Send him to state care. No one will care. We tell them he is a liar." Keisha's voice replied, cold and unfeeling. "I am his mother. My word is law." The reaction was visceral. A collective groan of disgust rippled through the room. Mothers clutched their chests. Fathers clenched their fists. To steal money was one thing. To attempt murder was another. But to plot the abandonment of an innocent child, that was a sin that society would never forgive. I turned back to Hunter and Keisha. They were shrinking. They seemed to be physically getting smaller under the weight of the truth. They looked at the crowd and saw no sympathy. They saw only hatred. They saw 500 witnesses to their depravity. Hunter tried to speak. His mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. "It was taken out of context," he stammered. "We were stressed. We didn't mean it." I stepped onto the stage. I loomed over them. "You wanted a stage?" I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You wanted an audience. Well, you have one. Look at them, Hunter. Look at them, Keisha. These are the people you wanted to impress. These are the people whose money you wanted to spend." I pointed to the screen where the toxicology report still glowed red. "That is not context," I said. "That is poison. That is my blood." I pointed to the audio waveform. "That is not stress," I said. "That is my son. That is your flesh and blood, Keisha, and you were going to throw him away like trash." Keisha fell to her knees, not in prayer, but in defeat. She covered her face, trying to hide from the glare of the lights, trying to hide from the judgment of the city. "Bernie, please," she sobbed. "I am sick. I need help." It was the drugs. It was Hunter. I looked at her. I looked at the woman I had shared a bed with, the woman I had trusted, and I felt nothing. The love was gone. The hate was gone. There was only disgust, like looking at a cockroach. "You are sick," I agreed. "But there is no cure for what you have. You have no soul, Keisha. You are empty." I turned to the crowd. I spread my arms. "This is the truth," I announced. "This is the family that accuses me. I leave it to you to decide who the monster is." The applause started slowly. One person clapping, then another, then the whole room. They were not applauding me. They were applauding justice. They were cheering for the exposure of evil. The sound grew until it was a roar, a wall of noise that crashed down on the two figures cowering on the stage. Hunter looked for an exit. He looked at the side door. He looked at the back. But he saw faces. Angry faces. The faces of men who would not let him pass. He saw the faces of the security guards moving in. And then he saw something else. Near the back of the room, standing by the kitchen entrance, were 3 men. They were not wearing tuxedos. They were wearing leather jackets. They looked out of place. They looked hard. Hunter saw them, and his face went from pale to transparent. He recognized them. They were the bookies, the lenders he owed money to, the dangerous people the detective had warned me about. They were watching the screen. They were watching the man who claimed he had no money wearing a suit that didn't fit, begging for sympathy. Hunter knew. He knew that prison was now the safest place he could be. Because if those men got to him first, a broken arm would be the least of his worries. He turned to me. "Call the police," he begged. "Please, Bernie. Call the police right now. Arrest me." I smiled. A cold, hard smile. "The police are on their way, Hunter," I said. "But traffic is bad tonight. You might have to wait a few minutes." I stepped down from the stage and took Tasha's hand. We walked through the crowd. People patted me on the back. They shook my hand. They looked at me with respect. I was not the victim. I was the victor. Behind me, the security guards grabbed Hunter and Keisha. They dragged them toward the exit. Not the front exit, the back exit. The one that led to the alley. The one where the police cars were waiting. And maybe, just maybe, where 3 men in leather jackets were waiting too. I did not look back. I did not need to see them go. I had seen enough. The gala continued. The music started again. The champagne flowed. But the air was cleaner now. The poison had been purged. The truth had set me free. The heavy metal doors of the service exit slammed shut behind them, cutting off the warmth and the music of the gala. The alleyway was a stark contrast to the ballroom. It smelled of wet cardboard, dumpster juice, and exhaust fumes. The security guards did not differ in their treatment of the tuxedo-clad guests or the trash. They threw Hunter and Keisha onto the wet asphalt with a force that was professional, yet satisfying. Hunter scrambled to his knees. He was panting, his breath puffing out in white clouds in the freezing night air. He looked around wildly. His eyes were wide and frantic, like a deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. He saw the flashing blue and red lights bouncing off the brick walls before he saw the cars. The alley was blocked at both ends. 4 police cruisers were parked at angles, their light bars spinning silently. Detective Miller stepped out of the lead car. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had seen too much evil in his career, but was happy to finally catch some of it. He walked toward Hunter, his hand resting casually on his belt near his service weapon. Behind him, 4 uniformed officers fanned out their hands ready. Hunter tried to stand up. He tried to fix his oversized suit jacket to regain some shred of dignity. "Officer," he stammered, holding up his good hand while the broken one in the dirty sling hung uselessly at his side. "Thank God you are here. These men assaulted me. My father-in-law has gone crazy. He has a weapon. You need to go inside and arrest him." Miller did not stop walking until he was 2 feet from Hunter. He looked down at the younger man with a mixture of pity and disgust. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Hunter Vance," he said, his voice flat and bored. "You are under arrest." Hunter blinked. "What? No. You are making a mistake. I am the victim here." Miller ignored him. He began to read from the paper. "You are charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated assault on a minor, domestic battery, 20 counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery of legal documents." The list went on and on. Each charge was a hammer blow driving Hunter further into the ground. Attempted murder for the poison, assault for hitting Tasha, child endangerment for threatening Leo, fraud for the stolen money. It was a laundry list of a life lived without a moral compass. Hunter began to back away. "No," he whispered. "That is all lies. The old man set me up. He is senile. He does not know what he is saying." Miller nodded to the officers. "Take him." 2 officers moved in. They grabbed Hunter by the shoulders. He screamed. He kicked out, catching one officer in the shin. It was a mistake. They slammed him against the hood of the cruiser. They did not seem particularly careful about his broken arm. Hunter howled in pain as they wrenched his hands behind his back. The click of the handcuffs was loud and final. "My arm," Hunter shrieked. "Watch my arm, you animals." "You should have thought about that before you poisoned an old man," Miller said. He leaned in close to Hunter's face. "By the way we found the guy who sold you the arsenic. He rolled on you faster than a cheap tire. He gave us the texts. He gave us the receipts. You are done, son." They dragged Hunter toward the back seat of the cruiser. He was sobbing now, begging for a lawyer, begging for mercy, begging for Keisha to say something to save him. But Keisha just stood there, pressed against the cold brick wall, shivering in her thin dress, watching the man she had destroyed her life for get hauled away like garbage. I watched from the loading dock door. I stood in the shadows, unseen by them. Tasha was behind me, holding my arm. She wanted to look away, but she forced herself to watch. She needed to see this. She needed to see the end of the monster so she could begin the beginning of her life. As they shoved Hunter into the car, he looked up and saw me. Our eyes locked across the alley. He opened his mouth to scream something else, maybe a curse, maybe a plea, but the officer slammed the door, shutting off his voice. He was just a silent face in the window now, screaming into the glass. The cruiser pulled away, lights flashing, illuminating the graffiti on the walls. One down. Keisha stood alone in the center of the alley. The police had not cuffed her. Not yet. Detective Miller looked at her. He wrote something in his notebook. "Ma'am," he said, "we will be in touch. Do not leave town." He got back in his car and followed the cruiser carrying Hunter. The other units dispersed. The alley went dark again, save for the single flickering security light above the door. Keisha let out a long, shaky breath. She hugged herself, rubbing her bare arms against the cold. She looked around nervously. She thought she had slipped through the cracks. She thought that because Hunter was the one who bought the poison, she might be able to talk her way out of it. She took a step toward the street, toward freedom, but she did not make it far. From the shadows near the dumpster, 3 men emerged. They did not look like police. They wore leather jackets that had seen better days. They moved with a predatory grace, silent and heavy. I recognized them from the ballroom. The lenders, the sharks. Keisha froze. She saw them and she knew. She knew exactly who they were. Hunter had told her about them. He had told her terrifying stories about what they did to people who did not pay. "Well, hello, Mrs. Vance," the leader said. He was a short, thick man with a scar running through his eyebrow. We were watching the show inside. Very entertaining. Keisha backed up until she hit the brick wall. "I do not have any money," she whispered. "Please. My husband. The police just took him." The leader laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "We saw that. Shame. He owes us $100,000. Plus interest. The juice is running, Mrs. Vance. And since your husband is going to be a guest of the state for the next 20 to life, he is not going to be earning much money stamping license plates. That has nothing to do with me," Keisha stammered. "That is his debt, not mine." The man stepped closer, invading her personal space. He pulled a piece of paper from his jacket pocket. He unfolded it and held it up to the dim light. It was a loan agreement, a promissory note. "Is that right?" he asked. "Because according to this paper right here, the loan was taken out in the name of Keisha Jefferson Vance. It has your signature on it, sweetheart." Keisha's eyes went wide. "No," she breathed. "No, he told me he signed it. He told me he used the business as collateral." The man shook his head, tisking softly. "Husbands lie, darling. He used your name. He used your credit. He used you as the collateral, and now he is gone. Which means the debt is yours." Keisha looked around desperately. She looked at the loading dock door. She saw me standing there. "Bernie," she screamed. "Bernie, help me, please. They are going to kill me." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had mixed poison into my milk every night. The woman who had planned to throw my son into the foster system. The woman who had laughed while I lay dying. I reached out and pulled the heavy steel door shut. I locked it from the inside. I heard her scream my name one last time. It was a high, terrified sound that was cut short. Then there was the sound of a struggle, the sound of scuffling feet on pavement, a car door opening and closing, tires screeching as a vehicle sped away. And then silence. I turned to Tasha. She was pale, shaking slightly. "Dad," she whispered. "Who were those men? What are they going to do to her?" I put my arm around her shoulders and guided her back toward the warmth of the hotel. "I do not know, honey." I lied. "But it is out of our hands now. She made her choices, but I knew. I knew exactly what would happen. Keisha was not going to jail. Jail would have been a luxury. Jail had meals and a bed and lawyers. Keisha was going into a world where debts were worked off in ways that stripped the soul bare. She was going to a place where her designer dresses and her arrogance would be stripped away layer by layer until there was nothing left but the raw reality of survival. Hunter had thrown her to the wolves to save himself. He had signed her name to his death warrant. It was a poetic justice that no court of law could ever hand down. We walked back into the kitchen of the hotel. The staff was cleaning up the gala. The clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation felt like a different world from the cold alley we had just left. Leo was waiting for us in the VIP suite. He was asleep on the sofa, clutching a stuffed bear I had bought him from the gift shop. He looked peaceful. He looked safe. I sat down in the chair opposite him. My body was tired. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the deep bone weariness of a man who had fought a war and won. But my mind was clear. The Empire was safe. The threats were gone. Hunter was in a cell where he belonged. Keisha was gone, vanished into the underbelly of the city, a ghost story to warn others about the price of greed. I looked at Tasha. She was covering Leo with a blanket, smoothing his hair. She looked younger than she had in years. The weight of Hunter's abuse was gone. The fear was gone. She was free. "We did it, Dad," she whispered, looking up at me. "It is finally over." I nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, it is over." But as I looked out the window at the city lights, I knew it was not just an ending. It was a beginning. I had been given a second chance at life. I had come back from the dead, and I was not going to waste a single second of it. I pulled out my phone and dialed Dante's number. He answered on the first ring. "It is done, Bernie," he said. "Hunter is being processed at central booking. The other matter has been handled. You will not hear from her again." "Thank you, Dante," I said. "Send me the bill. And add a bonus. You earned it." I hung up and closed my eyes. The poison was gone. The rats were gone. My house was empty, but my heart was full. Tomorrow I would go home. I would scrub the floors. I would throw out the furniture they had touched. I would paint the walls. I would make it a home again, a real home. For me, for Tasha, and for Leo. I drifted off to sleep in the chair, listening to the steady breathing of my son. The nightmare was over. The sun was about to rise on a brand new day, and Bernard Jefferson was still standing. The smell of hickory smoke drifting off the grill was the sweetest perfume I had ever known. It was better than the expensive cologne Hunter used to wear, and it was certainly better than the hospital antiseptic that had filled my nose a year ago. I stood on the deck of the lake house, flipping steaks with a pair of long tongs. The sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold that looked like a bruise healing into something beautiful. I took a deep breath. My lungs were clear. The doctors said the last traces of arsenic had left my system 6 months ago. My hands were steady. The tremors that had plagued me during those dark nights in the living room were gone. I was 69 years old, but I felt younger than I had in 20 years. Down on the lawn, Leo was throwing a football. He was 9 now. He had grown 3 inches in the last year. He was laughing. It was a loud, uninhibited sound that echoed off the trees. A year ago, he was a terrified little boy whispering secrets in the back of a car. Today, he was just a kid. He was safe. He was happy. And he was the bravest man I knew. Tasha was sitting at the patio table, chopping vegetables for the salad. She looked different, too. The shadows under her eyes were gone. She had cut her hair into a sharp professional bob. She wore clothes that fit her clothes that she bought with her own money from her own paycheck. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. She was the vice president of operations at Jefferson Logistics. She ran the floor with an iron fist and a velvet glove. The drivers respected her. The union reps feared her. She had my fire. Hunter had tried to extinguish it, but he had only managed to bank the coals. Now she was burning bright. "Dinner is ready," I called out. My voice boomed across the yard. Leo came running up the steps, his sneakers pounding on the wood. He grabbed a plate and loaded it with potato salad. Tasha poured the lemonade. We sat down together, just the 3 of us. The circle was small, but it was unbreakable. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fireflies start to blink in the tall grass. It was a peace I had paid a high price for. It was a peace bought with betrayal and pain, but it was worth every penny. When the plates were cleared, I leaned back in my chair. I looked at my children. It was time. I had one last secret to tell, one last layer of the onion to peel back. "I need to talk to you both," I said. The tone of my voice made them look up instantly. The smiles faded slightly, replaced by a watchful alert. They were survivors. They knew that serious tones usually meant bad news. "It is not bad news," I assured them, "but it is important. You know I have always told you that I was a mechanic who got lucky with a few trucks. I told you I owned a nice shop and had some savings." Tasha nodded. "We know, Dad. You worked hard." "I did work hard," I said. "But I let you believe something that wasn't entirely true. I let everyone believe it. It kept us safe. It kept the leeches away. Until it didn't." I reached under the table and pulled out a leather briefcase. I set it on the glass top. The latch clicked loudly in the quiet evening. I opened it. Inside were documents, not the kind Hunter had stolen. These were the real deal. I pulled out a blue bank book and slid it across the table to Leo. He looked at it confused. "Open it, son," I said. He opened the book. He stared at the numbers. He counted the zeros. His mouth dropped open. Dad, Tasha said, leaning over to look. "What is this? $5 million? That is your reward, Leo," I said. "You saved my life. You were the only one who saw the truth when everyone else was blind. You were my eyes when I couldn't see. You were my voice when I couldn't speak. That money is yours. It is in a trust. It will pay for your college. It will pay for your first house. It will pay for whatever dream you want to chase." Leo looked up at me. His eyes were wet. "I did not do it for money, Dad. I did it because you are my dad. I know I said my throat tight. I know, son, and that is exactly why you deserve it. Because you are the only person in my life who never asked for a dime." I turned to Tasha. I pulled a thick stack of legal papers from the briefcase. "And this is for you," I said. She took the papers. She read the cover page. Jefferson Logistics. Transfer of ownership. CEO appointment. "Dad," she whispered, "you are giving me the company." "I am not giving it to you," I said firmly. "You earned it. I watched you this past year, Tasha. You have the instinct. You have the grit. I built that company from a single van to a fleet of 1,000 trucks. But I am tired. I want to fish. I want to fix up old cars for fun, not for profit. I want to watch my grandson grow up. The empire needs a new emperor, and that is you." She stood up and came around the table. She hugged me, burying her face in my neck. "I will not let you down," she promised. "You could not let me down if you tried," I said. "You survived a monster. A boardroom will be a walk in the park for you." We sat there for a long time as the stars came out. We talked about the future. We talked about expanding the fleet to the West Coast. We talked about Leo's baseball tryouts. We talked about everything except the past. But the past was there like a scar that aches when it rains. I knew they were wondering. I knew they wanted to know. "Hunter pleaded guilty," I said quietly, answering the unspoken question. "He took a deal. 20 years. He will be an old man when he gets out. If he gets out." Tasha nodded. She did not look sad. She looked relieved. "And Keisha?" she asked. I took a sip of my iced tea. "Keisha is gone," I said. "The police never found her. But Dante did. I did not tell them the details. They did not need to know. They did not need to know that Keisha was currently washing dishes in a dive bar 3 states away, living under a fake name, looking over her shoulder every 5 seconds because the sharks were still circling. She was living in a prison of her own making. A prison of fear. It was a far worse punishment than a cell. "She is not our problem anymore," I said. "She is a ghost. And we do not believe in ghosts." I stood up and walked to the edge of the deck. I looked out at the dark water. The moon was rising, a giant silver coin in the sky. I thought about the man I was a year ago, a man who thought love was a warm glass of milk and a kiss on the cheek. I was a fool. But I was a lucky fool. I had been given a second chance. I turned back to my family. My real family. "You know," I said, leaning against the railing, "people say you cannot choose your family. They say blood is thicker than water. They are wrong." I looked at Leo clutching his bank book, not because of the money, but because his father gave it to him. I looked at Tasha reading the contracts, ready to take on the world. "Family is not about whose DNA you share," I said. "Family is not about who sits at your table at Thanksgiving. Family is about who stands beside you when the house is on fire. Family is the people who hand you the weapon when you are cornered. Family is the people who protect you when you close your eyes to sleep." I raised my glass. To us. To the survivors. Tasha and Leo raised their glasses. "To us," they said in unison. We drank. The lemonade was sweet and cold. The night was quiet. The war was over. If you enjoyed this story and you believe in justice, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that even when you are down, you are never out. I am Bernard Jefferson. I am a mechanic. I am a father. I am a survivor. And I am finally home. Looking back at the wreckage of my old life, I learned that the sharpest knives often come from the hands of those who hold you closest. For 40 years, I thought I could build a fortress of money and security to keep the wolves at bay, but I invited them in for dinner. True wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or business empires. It is measured in the loyalty of the people who stand beside you when the house is on fire. I learned that you are never too old to fight back, never too broken to heal, and that sometimes you have to let the dead wood burn to let the new forest grow. Looking back now, I realize the most dangerous mistake I made wasn't trusting the wrong people. It was ignoring my instincts for too long. I wanted peace. I wanted to believe love was enough. And because of that, I almost lost my life and my child. If there is one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this. Don't be like me, don't silence the quiet warnings inside you, just to keep things comfortable. I learned that evil rarely arrives loudly. Sometimes it wears perfume smiles softly and sleeps beside you. And sometimes the truth comes from the smallest, bravest voice in the room. I survived because I finally listened to my son, to my instincts, and to the part of myself I had buried for years. My lesson is simple: protect your peace, trust your gut, and never underestimate your own strength. Being kind does not mean being weak, and standing up for yourself and your family is never something to apologize for. If this story made you think, I invite you to leave a comment and share your perspective. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you believe intuition can save a life. If you feel this message could help someone else, consider sharing it, and if you'd like to hear more stories like this, subscribing to the channel truly helps. Thank you sincerely for staying with me until the very end. And one final note, the next story includes certain fictional elements carefully crafted for educational and storytelling purposes. If that's not something you're comfortable with, feel free to exit now and choose content that better suits you. Thank you for watching.